idea for the show.
I still don't know what the idea is.
It's about nothing.
Right.
Everybody's doing something. We'll do nothing.
They say, what's your show about? I say nothing.
There you go.
I think you may have something here.
Cross Coast Bias presents the League About Nothing podcast.
All right, everybody, welcome back. We have our Week 17 championship recap. I am terribly sorry to inform everyone that our league
it's going to be a good show.
is with me today in the room. Well, not in the room, but here. Congratulations to Alvernaz13, our league champion for the 2023 season. How do you feel?
Feels good to win.
Well, it certainly feels better than losing.
Yes, I agree.
A close matchup it was not, unfortunately, for Mel, who came in second place for the second year running. He's got a good team, but he can't quite get that last win in.
Always a bridesmaid, never a bride. I feel bad I didn't get his best shot. You know, it wasn't a great week for him, unfortunately, or fortunately for me, depending on how you look at it.
Yep, and also fortunately for you, you didn't face either of the teams that just missed out in the finals. One of whom would have beat you, and one of whom would have made it a much closer run contest.
Yes, thank you, Mel, for eliminating Big last week, so I did not have to play him in the finals and lose to him. So if you think I'm insufferable, you should have seen what the Big one.
So we have our we'll give the final score now. We won't get into the match. We'll give the final score. It was 235.89 to 195.13. As you said, not Mel's best shot, but still a heck of a performance and a heck of a year by him. Good job making the finals, as I said, for the second year running. So we'll get to all that, but let's get into the lead up of how we got to that final score, because we had some trades go down in the last week leading up to these finals.
We had a flurry of trades again, as we expected. Every week of matchups has kind of brought a new flurry, and this was the last ditch chance to get somebody that would help in the finals.
Yep. So you were involved in almost all of these. Mel basically took it fairly easy. He did have one big move in there, but you were much more active, even if the players you were adding were of questionable value, shall we say.
I was trying to add as many players as possible and push myself as much as I could over the roster limit, because we know this is a best ball.
Yep. So we'll start off trade on December 27th between you and Flea, where you sent a 2025 third round pick to Flea and got back Devin Singletary and Josh Oliver. Obviously, Singletary adding a little bit of depth to your fairly shallow running back room.
Yeah, exactly. That was the point of this. I needed a running back, as I have needed all season long. So I finally found one that was appropriately priced, and he made my lineup this week, so it was definitely worth it. I'm glad I got him, because I didn't get the best weeks out of my other running backs, as you would expect, based on the names of some of my other running backs.
Well, the surprise was Gibbs letting you down on Saturday night, but at least you had time going into Sunday to try and prepare for that.
Yeah, he's had a great season, especially the second half, so he was due for a down game at some point. Not super shocking. He's not the no doubt lead rusher on that offense. He's kind of the 1B to Montgomery's 1A most weeks. Guys like that are going to have down weeks where they just don't produce.
Yeah, and for Flea, she moves Singletary and Oliver, neither one of whom are foundational pieces, and she adds a third round pick to
her own third round pick.
Oh, was it her own? I thought it was your third round pick.
Nope, this was her own third round pick back.
Oh, all right. My mistake. I should have specified that earlier. Yeah, so she adds back, I guess she gets back that third round pick, which is useful for her because she has literally no other draft capital.
Right. Now she's got at least one pick.
We're more than a year out from that 2025 draft right there, so she could easily use that pick to add a veteran player or to trade for a different pick in this year's draft or any number of things.
Right. It gives her more flexibility than having a backup tight end and a running back with an uncertain future going into the offseason, as well as Singletary is played down the stretch. He's not signed next year, and nobody knows where he's going to end up.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me to see him back. I think they like the way he's played there. But even if he is back, who knows what capacity it's in.
Yeah, we all know that no running backs are guaranteed anything anymore. So whatever I get next year out of Singletary is gravy. I wanted him for this week only.
And burning a third round pick going into a Sunday where you need running back help is not a bad move.
Yep. All of these moves were to try to win this week, and that was the only focus.
Speaking of all these moves, let's move on to the next one. A trade you made with JMC. JMC received Irv Smith, Rashad Bateman, a 25 third round pick from your team, and a 2024 second round pick from Ruggs' team, which we should point out that's going to be a very high pick. That's going to be the 202 this year.
Yep.
And coming back your way, you got Tyrod Taylor and Travis Kelce. Kelce, obviously the big name here.
Yeah, the big name, but didn't help me.
No, didn't make the roster.
Was my quarterback one this week, so I'm glad I made the deal because I needed a quarterback more than I needed Travis Kelce, apparently.
This is a very this is a Raheed Shaheed situation. You traded a first round pick for Raheed Shaheed, and you traded the 202 for Tyrod Taylor.
Yep, it was worth it. He got in the lineup, was my quarterback one on my championship winning team. So this is exactly why I threw him into this deal, because he wasn't doing JMC any good, and I knew that my quarterback depth was kind of shaky after I traded for Herbert and then immediately lost Herbert. I know I needed to add some bodies, so he wasn't the only one that I added this week, but he turned out to be the only one that helped me.
Yeah, you needed some depth because you lost your boom player there when Herbert went down, unfortunately. So you want more shots at the target, bites at the apple, however you want to say it. You needed more depth, and Taylor gave you that late 30-yard run that he had in the fourth quarter, bumped him up past Tua, bumped him up past Simeon, these other guys that you had added, and
right,
who all basically had the same crappy game.
I'll take the points.
Yeah.
I mean, Travis Kelce obviously was the main part of this trade. I was hoping that he would boost me with a Travis Kelce game, which obviously didn't happen. The 202 plus the extra 25 third will definitely help JMC. Now he's got a pick in this draft and in a pretty good spot. Gives him a lot more flexibility than having Travis Kelce would come draft day if he's trying to move up and maybe get into the quarterback range in the mid-first. Travis Kelce's not going to appeal to a lot of these teams that have picks in that range because they're all rebuilding and he's an older asset. But now if he can combine that 202 with something else, now he may be able to move around a lot easier.
And as you said, you all of these were with an eye for this week, but despite the fact that Kelce's a little bit older, he's going to be back next year, and he's still going to be a very good tight end, if not the dominant number one tight end that we've seen the past few years. So having an older asset on the team isn't really a detriment to you when you're competing actively for the championship next year as well.
Unless Travis Kelce announces his retirement in the offseason, he's still going to be a useful tight end next year. He was the second best tight end in wins above replacement this year. Even on a down season for him, he was still the second most valuable tight end in the league. So I'll take next year's production as well. That's fine.
All right, moving on.
Yeah, let's talk about your deal. This was my favorite one. My favorite one of the whole week.
Sure. So Big and I made a trade December 30th where I acquired Rico Dowdle and Big acquired Clyde Edwards-Helaire. This was somewhat similar to your deals where Big was just trying to add a useful piece for his third place game. Unfortunately for him, the next day, Clyde was ruled out with an illness, which obviously none of us saw coming. So he didn't even actually get the benefit of him playing this week.
Yeah, that's tough. I assumed he had made this trade because he just likes Clyde Edwards-Helaire more than Rico Dowdle, and it was more of a challenge trade.
I think that's also a part of it as well. I approached Big asking about a different player, and our conversation led in a different direction. The player that I approached about wasn't something that we were going to come to a consensus or a deal on, so we started talking about other players, and Clyde came up, and he's a player that Big has tried to get from me, I don't know, half a dozen times in the last year.
Big has his guys.
With varying degrees of seriousness each time. He mentioned it again, and I looked around at his roster and I said, well, I mean, it's kind of somewhat silly to trade running back for running back in what is a very similar tier of players where Dowdle and Clyde are not anywhere near the top end of things.
I mean, they're backup running backs, right?
Yeah. But I said, I would be interested in this. I figured he would as well. He was. It was a pretty quick deal all in all. Hopefully it works out for both of us.
Right. Yeah. I mean, makes sense. I mean, Rico Dowdle has been the much better player this year, at least. Edwards-Helaire has that former first-round pick cachet still kicking around. It's possible that he's going to get a fresh start this offseason on a new team. Maybe he can run into some value depending on landing spots. So I think either way, they're both going to be backups, and it's probably it's tough to really speculate on who's really going to be more valuable at this point next year. If either of them have any value, it's possible that they both just go to zero, as backup running backs happen to do from time to time.
Yeah, so, and Clyde's got the impending free agency. We don't know if he's going to re-sign, if he's going to be somewhere else. So there's a possibility that, in a couple of months, Big looks like a genius because some other team has said, well, Kansas City's just using Clyde wrong all this time, and we're going to get him and use him right. And all of a sudden he's got a better or bigger or, more useful role on another team.
Right. If he lands somewhere like with old friend Joe Burrow, called him the best player he's ever played with. It's possible he recruits him there to Cincinnati. They could use some running back depth. If Mixon leaves, he could find himself there in a timeshare. But Rico's got a same unlikely path, right? Pollard is a free agent again. If Pollard leaves, Dowdle could walk into a starting role if they refuse to address the position. Both of those seem unlikely, but neither are impossible.
That's true.
We'll see. We'll see. It's an old fashioned challenge trade.
Basically.
Running back for running back. I think my guy is going to be better and you think your guy's going to be better. Let's find out what happens. It's just very low stakes, obviously, because they're both backup running backs.
None of this matters. So speaking of the possibility that Dowdle moves up that depth chart, there was another trade involving another running back on that same team. Our next one, Mel traded for Austin Eckler and traded with Big, sent Big back Tank Bigsby and Deuce Vaughn. If something does happen in Dallas, well, Big might have the guy anyways.
I really like this trade from Mel. I was expecting a little more action from him this week, but this was a really nice. This was a really nice kind of low leverage but smart ad, considering that Eckler was walking into a expected big workload this week, and Tank Bigsby has been basically nothing this year, and Deuce Vaughn's been even less than nothing. Mm-hmm. We don't often see rookie running backs that get zero run their rookie years, don't contribute at all, or start contributing and then are immediately sent to the bench for lesser players. They don't normally suddenly emerge as great players down the line. I mean, it's possible that these guys are young and they can still develop, but yeah, Tank basically got replaced by D'Ernest Johnson, and Deuce Vaughn was a healthy scratch for most of the year. So I know that Big liked these guys as prospects, so it's possible he's just taking a shot in the profile. Considering he only gave up a couple of fourth-round picks for Austin Eckler, it wasn't a big gamble. There's a good chance that these two guys are more likely to be on an NFL roster next year than Austin Eckler, based on how Austin Eckler has finished the season. At least these other guys are under rookie contracts and are probably going to be on the teams at least. It made sense for him to take a couple of shots at the future.
It was a decent trade for both teams. Like you said, Big had just recently acquired Eckler and had not really expended a lot to get him, so he wasn't super emotionally invested in the player, I'm guessing.
Yeah, he got him to help him in the playoffs, and he didn't. So time to move on. At
Exactly.
least he got something for him before he turns dust in the offseason, which is very possible.
Adding a couple of young guys in situations that are at least somewhat fluid is, it's as good as anything, but it's shocking to see how quickly Eckler's value evaporated.
The life of a NFL running back, even star running backs, can turn to nothing very quickly.
All right, and we have one other trade. This is the big one, the one that everyone's been waiting for.
Speaking of turning to nothing,
yeah.
Here's some guys who have always been nothing.
This trade started as nothing. This was between you and I. I apologize in advance for putting everyone through this.
It's easy. I can walk you through it. Here was the deal. I said, I got a couple of late round picks for next year. You can have them. Give me as many players that you don't care about, as many players that may contribute this week that have no value going forward. Give me all of them. I'm just going to load up my roster with as many players as I can for this week.
And of these 5 players, let's give the outline now. So I got your 2025 4th round pick and 5th round pick. And in return for those 2 picks, you got your one true love, Melvin Gordon.
Scored a touchdown this week.
The man I've been trying to unload for, I don't know, half of this season, CJ Beathard.
Hey, Lawrence finally missed a game.
Yep.
He finally had some value for me for 1 week at least.
The one player in this who actually contributed, Lil Jordan Humphrey.
Right. Made my lineup.
Dearness Johnson and Jaron Hall. I'm pretty sure you've already dropped Hall and Gordon, right?
Yes, and I think I dropped Beathard as well.
Yep, I would.
The others will be soon to follow.
Soon to follow.
I told you when we made this deal, the only pieces of this deal that will have any value after the games end on Sunday are going to be the 2 late round picks.
No, absolutely. If I had more crap to tack on here for you, I would have, but
I knew what I was doing. I was trying to win, and Lil Jordan got in my lineup, so I'm not complaining.
Yep. Again, it's how many 4th and 5th round picks are likely to make your lineup in a championship week? Not many.
Seems unlikely, so I'll take it, and you can enjoy your extra draft capital, and now 5 free roster spots to pick up more guys that could potentially come into value at some point next year.
Well, it's actually only 4 because Hall was on my practice squad, I think.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yep.
Because I traded him to you in the preseason.
Yeah, that's fine. I would rather have, at this point in the season, the taxi squad isn't, I'm not worried about losing that roster spot.
It's going to reopen in a week or whenever the
season I don't actually know when that happens, but
whenever we transition to next year, it'll open back up. So, yeah.
I added Tyler Goodson, who I'm pretty sure will have more value than any of those other guys if he retains the backup role going into next year.
It's very possible. We don't know what Indianapolis is going to do. They've used a combination of Moss and Sermon and Goodson. We know that Taylor's locked in long-term now after he signed his contract. Yeah. So they're not going to want to spend big money on a backup running back, obviously. And Moss is set to be a free agent. And I believe the other 2 are also free agents. I think they're all on 1-year deals. So we'll see. We'll see who comes back. He knows the system. He's flashed at the end of the year, especially as that pass-catching complementary role. So he could slide into that role next year. Worth a shot.
That's the hope.
More likely to be on a roster than Melvin Gordon next year.
All right, over to the matchups. So as we said before, you got the victory in the championship game, 235.89 to 195.13. I hate to say it again, but congratulations. How about that guy, CeeDee Lamb? 46.45 points on Saturday night.
Yeah, he was pretty important in this matchup. He was definitely the difference between winning and losing.
Yeah, if he just has a normal game, not a 45-point game, say he's got a 20-point game, all of a sudden you guys are neck and neck.
Yeah, and really all season, the way I've been winning is just having a bunch of guys score in the 20s. I haven't really had any massive, 40, 50-point games, but I finally got one at the right time.
It was a very interesting thing to have one game on Thursday, one game on Saturday, and then every single other game on Sunday. We didn't have the Monday night game or Monday night games as has been the case this year.
Yeah, it was kind of brutal to have this thing dragged out like this over multiple days of nationally televised games and having to watch play-by-play my team against Mel's players.
Well, you say that, but looking at these rosters, you were the only one who got a guy in from the Thursday game. You had David Njoku, who put up 23.4. That's a great way to start your week right there. And then on Saturday, you had Lamb drop 46, and you had Cooks in the same game put up almost 20 points. You're at 100 points already with good contributing players, and Mel is sitting there going, well, I sure hope my guys show up.
Right. Maybe when I meant excruciating, it was for Mel and not for myself.
Ouch.
It sure didn't feel like I was up by 100 points at that point.
Well, you weren't up by 100, but you had the only boom performances up to that point.
This is in championship week. Tilt is real. Even after 46 points from CeeDee Lamb, I still didn't feel great about my matchup. So.
I was shocked to hear this.
This is the life of fantasy football.
You had a couple of decent games at running back, which is what your team sorely needed. You get Khalil Herbert coming basically back from the dead the last 2 weeks. He's done almost nothing this season. He had injuries, and then even when he came back from the injury, he was slow off the mark, but he put up 21.65 for you this week, which it really was just, I don't know how to put this. It was just absolutely what you needed at the position.
Yeah, he saved me basically because I've been using a ragtag rotation of players all year, including another Bears running back, Donta Foreman, who was my best running back for a stretch of time. And then he had personal issue where they excused him from practice, and then he's been inactive since then and allowed Herbert to come back, take over the backfield, and play a lot like we saw last year. He was very effective. So good timing for me. I'm glad that I held on to Herbert all this time. Not that I had much of a choice with my horrible running back depth chart.
So speaking of the running back depth chart, over on the other side of things, Mel had Tyler Algier and Aaron Jones both put up 16 points for his team. Algier was
in very different ways.
almost exclusively from one 75-yard touchdown catch.
One play.
Obviously, Jones had 20 carries and 120 yards, but
yeah, he was good all game.
Yeah.
He was the engine of that team. But Algier was really
fantasy,
one play.
For fantasy, 21 touches and 130 all-purpose yards, you would expect to yield a little bit more than 16 fantasy points, at least in the scoring format of this league.
He had a really good real-life game. He was very effective, slashing, gaining yards in chunks. Just didn't get a touchdown, and they didn't really use him in the passing game. So fantasy points were a little muted. Unfortunately for Mel, that kind of happened across the board this week.
Yeah, he didn't have any of those boom games. His team wasn't bad. He would have been over the median most weeks, but just no explosive performances, no guys who had, those 2 touchdown games or anything like that.
Yeah, a lot of his big boom players were on his on his bench or lower down in his flex spots. Guys like Cooper Kupp, AJ Brown, players he's been depending on all season, Jamar Chase. These were his big time scorers all year and expected to lead him into the finals. Did not come through for him this week, unfortunately.
Yeah, and even guys who haven't had great years but are still like big names, like Tony Pollard, only 7 points. Eckler, who he traded for, only 5 points. Just DeAndre Swift, 8 points. Rashad White, who's had a really good year, but only 8.6 points this week. So some big names, especially at the running back position, really kind of letting him down, unfortunately.
Yep, Deontay Johnson as well, who's kind of been passed in the pecking order by George Pickens' explosions the last few weeks. That's who he traded his first-round pick for earlier in the year. Yeah,
I mean, Johnson made his lineup, made the final, roster there, 13.6 points, but 13.6 points is, it's a middling score at best.
Yeah, he needed more. He needed more from everybody, basically.
So the only spot that he really had a significantly better week than your roster was at the quarterback position, where Mel's QB4 outscored your QB1.
Yeah, well, my QB1 was Tyrod, so I'm just glad I didn't get a 0 at quarterback this week, because that was definitely a possibility based on some of the guys that I was throwing out there.
So Mel's QB1 was Fields, who put up a 24.47. Should note that you had Fields on your roster and traded him to Mel, so this could have come back to haunt you.
Yeah, it almost did, because the pieces that I got in that deal, Tua and Jalen Waddle, did not help me this week.
No, Waddle
Tua did make my lineup, but yeah, Waddle being injured really hurt.
Mel's QB2 was at Josh Allen. He had 2 rushing touchdowns, but just a very, I don't know how to say un-Josh Allen like, but just a very poor performance throwing the ball, especially early on.
Yeah, I mean, even the final line, 15 for 30, 169 yards and an interception. That's not great. Lost a couple of fumbles.
No.
Yeah, it was not a vintage Josh Allen game. He still managed to get over 20 points and outscore all of my quarterbacks, but it was a very down game from what has been the quarterback one.
Outside of that quarterback position, not a whole heck of a lot to write home about with Mel's roster. A nice pickup of Alex Erickson, who came out of nowhere to score 21 points for him. So
yeah, he had
good roster management.
He had a lot of guys like that he picked up off of waivers this year, despite us claiming every week that there's no one available on waivers. Somehow Mel has managed to find multiple contributors. Alex Erickson and Demarcus Robinson were his wide receiver 1 and 2 this week in the championship week, both of which were on my roster. I was the last player to roster, the last team to roster both of these 2 players. So you're welcome, Mel.
We should note that Robinson had a 15.2, which is his lowest score in the last 5 weeks, which, if you'll go back in the calendar, coincides exactly with when you dropped him and Mel added him.
Yeah.
So well done to you for dropping him, Mel for adding him, and Demarcus Robinson for somehow coming out of nowhere to be a very good real-life wide receiver for the Rams. Although I think he had a couple of fumble issues. Didn't he?
Yeah, he fumbled twice and he lost one of them. Wasn't a perfect game, but definitely helped them win. And he's definitely slid into that wide receiver 3 role for them over early season hero Tutu Atwell.
So congratulations one more time on your championship here. Our condolences one more time to Mel for that second consecutive second place finish. I'm sure both of you will be back in the playoffs next year and we can all root against both of you.
Now let us never talk of this again.
Essentially, yes. Let's move over and recap that third place matchup.
Yeah, there's a lot more points in this matchup. This one was more fun.
Nope. This was the matchup between the 2 teams who got the first round buys and finished the regular season number 1 and number 2. Big took home the third place title with a pretty big score. He put up 266.34 this week, beat out Flea, who put up a 220.83. This would have been a very different finals had these 2 advanced instead of you and Mel.
Right. Well, I think that Big is on the similar path to my team, where we had a year of being a non-playoff team, and then the next year we had a very good regular season, got a bye, ended up in the third place, winning the third place game. And now for me, the third year, that was winning the title. So we'll look to Big next year to continue that trend.
That sounds terrible.
Well, it will be terrible for the other 11 of us, but I'm sure that's what Big is looking forward to.
It's quite possible that happens. Both of these teams have a lot of depth and very good starters. So it would not be shocking in the least to see Big make and win the finals next year, or for that matter, Flea's team make and win the finals.
Big especially has a very young lineup as well. He's got a lot of rookies, first, second year guys.
Some of those guys put up some pretty big weeks for him, but he didn't have that boom week. This is another one of those where he got to a really high score with that 266 without having that 40-point day. This was just a lot of contributors at a very high level.
That's similar to how his team's been playing for a lot of the year. He hasn't had huge spike weeks outside of a handful, but he's had a lot of points from a lot of different players, and he definitely got that this week.
Yeah, so he had 25 points from Kyler Murray as his QB1. On that same team, James Conner took a lot of people home in the finals with a 28-point game. Jerome Ford started him off the right way Thursday night, 27 points. Sam Laporta, 23 points. Devon Achane, 25 points. Joe Flacco as his QB2, 23 points. All these really, really good scores.
Don't forget about Trey Palmer.
Rico Dowdle could never. That's why he traded him away.
We finally got the Trey Palmer payoff here.
Oh, did you see that
massive
massive play that Palmer had where he immediately fumbled without anyone touching him at all? Oh, man. I felt bad for Baker on that one.
Could have been an even bigger day for Trey Palmer, but
yeah, if he held on to that one, who knows? Maybe he gets a look in the end zone.
But it's definitely something to look forward to going into next year for Trey Palmer, with the chance now to grow his role. Mike Evans, an impending free agent, although I find it hard to believe that they would let him go, especially after the season he just had and how important he's been to that franchise for his entire career.
I think that's one of those, the franchise needs to retain him, not for his ability, but for what he means to the fans and the franchise.
But it also helps.
And also his ability.
Also very good. And had basically a career season.
Which is absolutely wild.
Yeah, you don't expect many career seasons when you get into your 30s from players that have already been good for a long time.
So over on Flea's side of the matchup, a 220 is a very good score. We talked about this last week. There have been only about a dozen scores of 220 or more points that lost this year.
Yeah, so it feels like she has all of them, though.
A consecutive weeks of bad beats for Flea, unfortunately. Her team has shown up for her in the playoffs. She lost last week with 230 some odd points and lost this week with 220. It's just, in the playoffs, you're running into the other best teams, and sometimes you just get a little bit unlucky.
Yeah, it's matchup variance. It's not just what you can do. It depends on who you're playing that specific week. Exactly. But again, she's also got a good team and a mostly young core. She's got a couple of older guys on this team, but it's not a terribly old team that we expect to fall off a cliff.
No,
this team
not
should
by any means.
Be very competitive again next year as well, and will probably be one of the favorites when we get to that preseason show.
I would imagine so, especially if she decides to spend any of that future capital once it becomes available.
2027 picks are coming.
Yep. It's only a matter of time before she has them burning a hole in her pocket, just like the rest of us. You see those picks and you think, I could use those right now. I'm in a couple other leagues where every time I reconsider, like, what do I want to do with this roster? I'm like, I could just burn 3 years worth of picks and try and win the title right now. Nobody else is going to do it.
Keep it going. Push that window as long as you can, because winning feels a lot better than losing.
Yeah. So she had a big day from a few positions. A highlight, Justice Hill had the 2 touchdown day.
I know she liked that because Justice Hill is one of her guys. She's had him forever since he was drafted, probably on a lot of teams. And I know she's going back and forth with him in this league, especially. So that's good. She definitely feels nice to get that payoff.
She traded with you to get him earlier this year. So to see him still on the roster and still producing late into the playoffs has got to feel nice. ETN also with a big day. That was the 2 touchdown day. I misspoke earlier. Hill with only 1. Jaylen Warren also acquired from you. Can you stop trading away all your running backs? For the love of God. Then you wouldn't have to do things like add Melvin Gordon the day before the finals.
Wait till I trade Jahmyr Gibbs this offseason.
Oh, man.
It's coming.
I do. A good matchup here. A good win for Big's team. Another tough loss for Flea. We know she'll be back there next year. We know Big will be back there next year. It's up to the rest of us to try and knock all 3 of you out of things. I'm not counting Mel because I feel bad he keeps losing in the finals.
Well, if you keep making it to the finals every year, eventually you'll have variance on your side.
You say that. What am I like 0-4 in the redraft league?
Well, if you keep making it eventually,
Yeah.
it may take 10 more tries, but
I
at
didn't
some
even make
point
it this year.
at some point you will get there.
Did you see I lost the third place game by a point? I forgot to set my lineup.
I didn't even look.
No. I put up more points. I forgot to set my lineup, put up more points than both other teams who made the finals, and still lost the third place game by a point.
Redraft.
All right, we have one other matchup to cover before we get out of here. This one's going to be real quick.
All right, this is the big one.
We don't have any sounders, but if we did, I'd ask for a drum roll here.
Oh, I thought you were going to ask for a flushing toilet.
Drum roll to a flushing toilet. We have the toilet bowl final taking place between Georgia Mike and Benign Rug, and congratulations to Georgia Mike, who managed to avoid the last place finish, beating out Benign Rug with a 154.01 to a 92.28. So,
yeah, it makes sense. His team's been a lot better than Rug's over the last month or so of the regular season and now into the playoffs.
Yeah, he's had a few of those younger players get larger roles, if not necessarily better ones. Jalen Rager with a special teams touchdown. I don't even know what to do with this. We're not talking about this matchup. Rug, my condolences on your toilet bowl. Georgia Mike, congratulations on avoiding it. Let's move on. Bryce Young, negative points this week. Oof.
Well, the good news is Rug will be in position to draft one of the top quarterbacks again this year. So
that's true.
That works out better for him than it did with Bryce Young this season.
There's very few ways in which it cannot.
You say that, but
I
famous last words.
In a fantasy perspective, Young has been just absolutely worthless.
He's been abysmal.
You would say that he has been a better real life quarterback than Zach Wilson. Right?
Yes,
marginally,
only because
he's been significantly worse from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, well,
that's where we're at right now.
The good news is there's a chance that Bryce Young could get better next year.
Oh, absolutely.
New coach,
yeah,
better offensive coordinator.
Oh, they will have new everything because they're going to clean house again.
There's still hope. He was the number one pick in the NFL draft for a reason. He was a good prospect. This year was not great. He had awful receivers. They did not help him at all this year. The line was really bad. The coaching staff was obviously a mess. That's why they're all gone.
Yep.
So, we'll
see what happens.
Trevor Lawrence had a very bad rookie season as well in awful circumstances.
I'm not sure that's the comp. I'm not.
All right, I'm trying to make Rug feel better.
Listen, I'd actually, again, I don't dislike Young. And he seems like a nice guy as well. So I mean,
not burying Bryce Young yet.
No, that's not fair enough.
If he's still playing like this halfway through next season, then we get a problem.
Sure, we'll get the shovels out then.
Yes.
All right. Before we get out of here, since obviously we have no playoff prediction odds or anything like that,
that's it.
We're gonna give a brief recap of where the draft order stands, and not only where the draft order stands, but where those picks have actually moved since they were. A good portion of them were traded.
Yeah, very few are still in the original owner's hands.
My co-host here posted this in chat once everything was finalized earlier today, but I'll read it out for anyone who didn't see it or forgot, or anyone who, again, I know that there are a couple people who are not in this league who listen to this. Why are you here? But anyway.
Maybe they enjoy our witty banter.
Yes, that they come for the Phantom Menace references and the baseball jokes.
That keep getting cut from the show that no one ever hears but me.
It's going to be a super cut one day.
Just Phantom Menace jokes for an hour.
All right, so our first four picks are all owned by their original team still. 101 is Georgia Mike, 102 Benign Rug, 103 is my pick, I am Jarsal, 104 is Criddle. After that, no one owns their own pick with for the rest of the way. The 5th overall pick was attached to Mr. Good News' roster. That pick is now owned by Georgia Mike. The 6th overall pick was attached to Flinch's roster. That pick is now owned by Benign Rug. The 7th pick was attached to JMC's roster. That pick is now owned by you, Alvernaz13.
Yep.
The 8th pick was attached to Judd's roster. That pick is owned by Georgia Mike. The 9th pick was attached to Flea's roster. That pick is also owned by Georgia Mike. The 10th pick was attached to Big's roster. That pick is owned by Criddle. The 11th pick attached to Mel's roster. That pick is owned by Benign Rug. And the 12th pick was attached to Alvernaz, your roster, and that is now owned by Mr. Good News.
Right. So 4 picks in the top 9 for Georgia Mike.
Yes, including 1 and 5.
That'll go a long way towards rebuilding this roster.
With 8 and 9, he's got some flexibility. With 5, obviously, he's able to probably package stuff to move up if he were to want to try and get into that top 4 again.
Right, because
I'd imagine that there would be teams amenable to that.
The top 4 teams all have lots of holes to fill.
Yeah. So if he sees multiple guys that he wants to spend those premium picks on, he could probably add 2 guys in the top 4.
Criddle at 4 is a lot closer to being a competitive team than the bottom 3 teams.
That's true.
So
I can definitively speak that the 3rd pick is available.
Right. It's on the block today.
I suspect we're not done seeing movement in this first round.
Nope.
Every year somebody will fall in love with a prospect and want to move back into it. You'll see teams trading for veteran players. You'll see teams, doing all sorts of things. I'm sure we'll have more movement before draft time and during the draft itself.
Yep. I'm looking forward to digging into some of this draft coverage now that the fantasy season is over. I'm looking forward to doing a mock draft here of our own league. I know that 9 of the 12 picks are held by 3 teams, so I don't know how interesting that will be to the rest of the league, but it's going to be a fun exercise for us to do at least.
Yeah, once we have a more definitive order for the non-playoff teams in the actual NFL, we'll start seeing those, first half of them, NFL draft mock drafts come out and all those sorts of things. Once we have a little bit more of that information, we'll do our own based on someone's mock draft.
Yep. It's never too early. Let's get those mock drafts going.
You say, I used to text you in like June, be like, think it's a good time to start mock drafting for redraft? And this was before you were dragged kicking and screaming into Dynasty. So you always answered yes.
Well, I'm all in now. It's early January. Let's get a look at those rookies. Fantasy playoffs are over. It's time to start turning the page, look into next year.
There it is. From the league champ himself, it's never too early to move on.
Right. We're done. This season's over. On to the next. On to Cincinnati.
I was going to say, this is a Bill Belichick segment right here. This is oh yeah. Well, the offseason starts tomorrow. We're behind everybody.
Yep. That's it. I could have had this roster in shape weeks ago, but instead I had to try to keep winning. Now I got work to do.
That about wraps up what we've got covered for the finals here. I don't know. I want to say thanks to everybody who was listening throughout the regular season. We're not going to go anywhere for the offseason. We'll be doing more stuff, but I don't know exactly what kind of schedule we will be on, but I know pretty much every week we posted a couple hours later or even sooner for some of you. There'd be comments in the chat about something that one of us said on the show. So we know people were listening. We both appreciate that.
Yep. Probably won't be as regularly regimented with no weekly recaps to do, but we'll have some content for you for the off season. I know it's a long off season, and we'll be right there with you, looking at way too early mock drafts and free agency and things like that.
And we've mentioned it before. We might try to do some bigger picture things as well that aren't league specific, and obviously we'll share any of that we do as well.
Yep.
Say thank you to everyone for listening. You jumped right into, we're going to be doing other stuff. Say thank you. Be personable.
Thank you all for listening. It warms my cold, dead heart that any of you take any of your precious free time to spend it listening to us talk nonsense for an entire fantasy football season.
Yeah.
I don't know why you do it, but I truly appreciate it.
All right. Well, that unfortunately wraps up the 2023 season and the Week 17 championship recap. We will be back soon. I'm not sure if it'll be next week or shortly thereafter, but it won't be too long. So one last thing before we head out, we do have our long anticipated interview with the man, the myth, the legend, one BiggBiscuits, who joined us for a fairly lengthy chat where we covered many topics, but somehow forgot many more. So we're going to have to get that dude back on here at some point.
Right. Yeah. We could have gone 8 hours with him easily.
Should note we started that interview at 10 p.m. my time. So when we stopped, it was really bedtime.
It went into the wee hours of the night.
So we've got that one for you now. Enjoy, and we will catch everybody soon. All right, everyone. This week we have another manager interview for us. We have BiggBiscuits here joining us today, the man you have all been waiting for.
Hello!
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 Hello! Hello!
Hey, man, welcome
What's
in.
up, guys? How you doing, fellas? How you doing?
We're doing well. We're doing well tonight. We're glad you could find some time to join us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to try and not talk too slowly for the Northerners, the Yankees up there.
Oh, come on. I hear more about our accents from you guys in the chat than we have made any comment on anyone else's the entire time.
No, well, Mr. Good News did admit that he was happy with, I think it was Georgia Mike, being from Georgia, he still was able to talk pretty quickly, even though he did have that Georgia drawl. I want to get through it. I want to power through it.
It is interesting to see how it's one country. It's one. How do I phrase this? It's you used to have the broadcast accent, like the Atlantic accent from way back, and like
we're about to get a history lesson.
No,
Here we
no,
go.
no.
Strap in.
Here we go.
And now you have.
Hello.
Well, no, now you have like national news broadcast in these cable networks that like air all the time, and like even things like ESPN where they try to have intentionally non-regional diction in their speech. But even with that being piped in all the time through various forms of media, there are very, very strong regional accents in basically every part of the country.
I don't think I sound like a Texan until I try to, but I think it comes out. It is what it is. We don't.
I didn't think you sounded like a Texan
Until
there.
you said that.
Until you said it is what it is, and there it was.
What it is.
I was like, it's not strong. And then, yep, there we go. Slipped out.
Yeah.
But we don't think we have accents either. So
You don't?
my wife gives me a hard time all the time about it.
I wouldn't be able to place it. That's for sure. I never really considered a Rhode Island accent before, but you do have some sort of accent.
Well, I've lived in like 30 different places. No,
Working from home.
I just moved a lot when I was younger.
Fair, yeah. Oh, that makes sense. I guess I was asking because you had said you were considering moving in the future, and you were considering a few different places, and I was kind of taking the leap and. I got you.
It's too expensive over here. No, I'll just find another job. I'm not that attached.
All right. So what's up, guys? You got Any questions?
Oh, we got plenty of questions. First of all, how dare you? Oh wait, no, we already did that thing. Sorry. Well, you know the standard questions that we ask, the how long you've been playing fantasy stuff, all that. If you want to run through that, we'll get all that stuff out of the way. So, how long you been playing fantasy?
2006.
Okay.
I graduated, and I had never heard of it before. I got to my first semester of college, and a buddy just is like, in conversation, just starts talking about the concept of fantasy football, and I'm instantly mind blown in the moment. And I kind of understood it at the time more like DFS, how DFS works today. And then he starts telling me, more, no, you play for a full season, you're with all your buddy, and I was just like, oh my god, this sounds like the greatest thing in the world. Like the DFS version sounded fun enough on its own, but the
Sure.
full season long thing just sounded like everything I ever wanted to do. And I went headfirst into it. And, but that was just redraft, completely redraft. And I did that for years. I am in a league with Judd and a bunch of our other buddies from high school. And Judd is the one that got me into, so we joined an FTA league, which I don't even know what that stands for, but it was FTA. It's like a fantasy website. And the whole deal was, they were giving away a free $50 prize for first place, no entry fee to join the league, but you had to write a paragraph for every single draft pick that you had, just kind of describing why you took that person, what it is you like about them, and I guess that contributes to their their website. And so that Judd got me into that.
They
Judd,
crowdsourced player blurbs.
Right.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, absolutely. And Judd, me and my other buddy PK, we jumped on all at the same time so that we could try and get into the same league, and we were lucky enough to do that. And lo and behold, Mel Crisp is in that league, along with, I believe, It Was All Right, which I think you guys played with in United for a few years.
He was Mel's co-manager.
Yep. So we all met in that FTA league, and Mel starts talking, because it was on the message board is how we're communicating through the FTA league. Mel starts talking about Dynasty, and he drops a link to a sleeper league. I download Sleeper and got into that first Dynasty league. So you want to talk about Dynasty Daddy? Mel Crisp saw me, young child that I was, and thought there's potential. If I let this boy grow,
if I lead him astray now,
he'll be stunting like his daddy anytime. So he really truly groomed me for fantasy. I owe all that.
Throwing a lot of phrases out here that I'm not sure we can leave in.
Oh no, we're leaving all this.
Thus began the descent into madness.
So when was that the start of the Dynasty stuff?
Okay, Saquon Barkley's rookie year, whatever. I'm really bad with, numbers.
Okay.
I don't know what year that was, but Saquon was my first pick in the first round of that startup, single quarterback at the time. And that's the league that you're now in.
The Michael Scott one there?
Michael Scott Sleeper Bot. Yep,
nice.
that's us. So
started off with a real doozy of a name for a league right there.
Absolutely. And that's, not to be cheesy, but that's where you really start to go, okay, this commissioner, Mel Crisp, whoever this guy is, funny character. He's got a lot of good qualities, and just the league, man, just took off, and everybody started, just talking and getting along instantly. I think Criddle is definitely in that league now, and he was there at the time. I don't know if he was part of the FTA league, but there was a few other guys in that league that were in the original FTA league that all hopped over into this Dynasty league all at the same time. And yeah, man. So that was just, and for that first year, I only had one league. I didn't do, the number that I have now.
What's the current number?
Oh man, I think 63, 64. I'm literally in a draft right now. I'm coming up on the clock here in a little bit.
So you did join that one that you were talking about like 2 days ago.
Absolutely. I thought it was going to start that night, and I've been, sitting on my hands for 2 days, just trying to wait for it to start. I got Justin Herbert at 109. That's the pick there.
It's good value.
Just that's what I do. quarterback early on.
No,
And
Herbert's a great pick.
That's what everyone should do. And,
I want to know how many. I want to know how many leagues you've joined since this year started, like post week 1.
At least 3.
Okay, post week 1, 3 for sure. Yeah. 4.
I said at least.
No. Okay. I'm getting it confused. It's 3 for sure. 4 because I started one literally like the day before week 1 started. That was the Dak went the 7th. That was like right before season. But 3 after week 1, and I started those like in week 7 or so. I did 2 and then 1 here this week. So I don't know why.
I have to ask. So a league starting right now. Are you guys doing playoffs of any kind for this season? Like, are you just for next year? But we're drafting now.
Just for next year for sure. I ended up. I think the way that I find myself in so many leagues is you meet a group of guys that you really just get along with, and they pressure you, and of course you jump over eventually to do it. And so I'm in a few leagues with these guys that the commissioner is doing state by state. Each league is a state. So I'm in Texas, I'm in New York, I'm in Georgia, et cetera, et cetera. This one right now is Kentucky. And so that's just to give the league a theme. There's nothing, particular about the states other than just to change it up, change the vibe. And we kind of follow each other state to state. So all of us are like, hey, let's go. Let's do another one.
How many states have you covered so far? Approximately.
Well, so I'm not in all of the states leagues. I'm only in a small handful. He's getting there. He's going to get to 50 probably by either this year or next year.
Damn.
But yeah, I mean, I think he's got like 27 or so. He said the other day.
It's pretty impressive.
So yeah, it's fun. It's just a good group of people, and yeah, man, I have a hard time resisting and saying no.
I understand. I like drafting as well. I find excuses to let myself draft more often. I drafted a ton of just one-off best ball leagues this year because I enjoy the draft process so much.
Well, our league is so great because I hope it's great because otherwise I'm annoying people all day, every day. But our league is great because the chat is so active. Most of them that I find myself in are not. And I like that because I couldn't handle 60 league about nothing.
No, I couldn't handle 2.
Exactly. But I think the startup draft period, just the energy everyone has with the excitement of doing a new league is always a fun time, keeps everybody. It's kind of like League About Nothing light. Everyone's joking, having a good time, sharing gifts, etc. And then once the season starts, it seems to die down and goes back to normal. But that's why I like us, because we all seem to have a good time.
Yeah, well, you're responsible for a lot of that. So every time the league chat gets quiet for about an hour, we get some random stuff. Fires it back up, going off in tangents for the next 6 hours.
The best of the tangents that have nothing to do with football as well.
None of them ever have anything to do with football.
It's mostly true.
Talking about football usually quiets the chat.
Yeah. Get out of here with your football questions.
It's almost as bad as talking about baseball.
For some reason, I bring up baseball more in our league chat than I do like in the rest of my life combined.
Yeah, because it makes everyone mad.
Well, no one in my life wants to talk about baseball except for my father.
Well, he's in the right demographic for baseball fans.
He's in his 70s. That makes sense.
I'm being quiet because y'all are talking about baseball.
Yep, that was the plan.
So you said you started in 2006. You got invited when you were in college. Now, at the time, were you as into the Texas high school and college football scene as you seem to be now? Like you're very knowledgeable about that area in specific. Was that the case then, or did that develop later?
I used to be really, really into college football. I am currently, admittedly, I don't watch it. I work most Saturdays, and I kind of had to give it up. When I was that age, high school, early college age, I really liked college football, and I could tell you where every single NFL player went to college. That was kind of my party trick. That was also back when they would actually, before they started saying like Ball Hard University, when they would actually, introduce their names and where they went to school, and I'd try and jump out ahead of every single one to, impress whoever I'm watching the game with. I was really into college football. High school football, I love it. I don't follow it super closely outside of my region, but until you hear about a guy that makes its way through the news, and then I'll start kind of plugging in, like Kyler Murray. I lived here in Texas when Kyler Murray was in high school, didn't really hear his name much, and then you go back and you look at his statistics and what he did in high school, and it blows you away. I did play high school football here in Texas. I was injured. I didn't play much, but Judd played as well. That's how I met Judd. So I think, we're the New Braunfels Unicorns. So
very Scottish.
Hey, my high school was the Wizards, so we were
No
mascot
way, okay.
creatures
Wizards?
together. Wizards,
Wow.
yeah.
I didn't even know that.
Yep, the Wizards. We were black and orange was
I
our
knew that.
colors because I'm from an old mill town, and those were the cheapest dyes. One, because no one wanted orange, and black because it was so easy to make. So that's how the high school got their colors. And then somehow they became named the Wizards. So
You should mention that it was
Wizards
West
and
Warwick
unicorns.
Wizards, so we had some real alliteration going there.
yeah,
the
there
West
you go.
Warwick Wizards.
Yeah.
www.www.
Essentially, yes.
Yeah. That's Wizards and Unicorns. So the unicorn is on the New Braunfels, the Braunfels, Germany city seal. And so it's also
Makes
on the
sense.
New Braunfels, Texas
Does
city
that
seal.
does that make sense?
Yeah. So I have to go look then and see if Warwick, England has a wizard on their shield.
Has a
I wonder
wizard.
if that's why.
Possibly. I guess, Washington, the NBA team got away with it for so many years, and I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
better.
They were better
his,
than bullets.
his West Warwick team was originally called the Bullets, but
Yeah, right.
they thought that
right.
might not be appropriate for high schoolers.
Yeah. Then they got Michael Jordan. They got weird, right? Late period Michael Jordan.
Late period Michael Jordan still averaged like 20 points a game. It's absolutely wild. The man had no knees left.
That was the Wizards, right? Or was it the Bullets at that time?
It was the Wizards.
I think they were the Wizards. I don't think they've been the Bullets since like the
Feels like-
70s or something.
Yeah, it feels like the Wizards.
No,
Well-
they were the Bullets later than that, but not as late as when Jordan played for them.
Well,
Yeah.
but I guess it's very cliche when you just to go back to your question about Texas high school football. When you play it, when you grow up in this environment, when you're obviously going to think that all the cheesy stuff you hear about it's a religion in Texas. High school football means so much more in Texas than it does in other states. Like, I don't know how much truth there is to that just because I didn't experience other states, but I know that it's true. It's true for Texas. I'm not going to compare and say that it wasn't real for any other state, but I know that here, some of our high school stadiums are bigger than college stadiums.
Yeah.
The way that communities around here follow this stuff, I mean, it is intense and it is crazy. And all of the money that goes into it. And it's just growing and growing. I mean, if you look at NFL rosters, like so many of them are from Texas, California, and it's been that way for decades. Dallas, Houston, especially.
Yep.
Those two places, man. It's just something that I follow, but I'm not following the current season, but I definitely go back and look at and try and put in context these guys that are making it into the NFL from Texas and just kind of see how they competed. Like Derrick Henry was not from Texas, but in high school.
All
if you've
those
ever
high school
seen
stats are insane.
it's insanity. I don't really have any context to know what his competition was like. But if I see that Kyler Murray went 42-0 as a starter in Texas high school football, won 3 state championships, I have a little bit of a better idea of what that means just because, I played it, I saw it firsthand. And
Yeah.
Jake Browning, that's another guy. I admittedly looked up Kyler Murray stats for this endeavor here, and I was like, wow, this pales in comparison to Jake Browning's numbers that they announced the other night on that on that primetime game. So Shout out Melcrest for that trade.
I still can't believe that Mr. Good News had the quarterback luck he's had, and then he's like, you know what, I'm going to trade away Jake Browning before he like implodes, and then Browning's been so good since.
It's amazing. God. The ebbs and flows of this season, man, have been so much fun.
So you said you and Judd played high school football together. What position did each of you play?
Okay, so I played offensive line.
Right.
Obviously, and Judd was a linebacker, and I tore my meniscus my sophomore year and my senior year. Same knee, same bucket handle tear of the right medial meniscus, both times. So I did not play my senior year at all. I played freshman and junior year mostly. Judd was like a legit, varsity starter, all district, maybe by district. Good little player. I actually owe Judd a lot of credit for not just getting me into fantasy, but also introducing me to his friend group. When I moved to New Braunfels, we went to football camp together, and I went to the first day of school. Football camp was in the summer. I go to the first day of school. Judd sees me in first period. He's like, "Hey, you're the fat guy that ran the long touchdown at football camp. Come sit over here with me and my buddies." And if that had not happened, I would have a totally different social life. Would have had a different social life in high school. So I owe Judd a lot of credit for that. And we've been best friends ever since. So nice. I wish he would hop on this damn podcast and answer some questions.
Open invitation, Judd. Open invitation.
Yeah, anytime.
Kind of frustrating me. I literally have his entire family right now pressuring him to get on this thing. So we'll see how it goes.
As long as he knows that pressure is from you and not from us, we'd be happy to have him anytime. But we don't want to,
put it all on me, baby.
No, Judd is our white whale. We have to do it.
Well, let's talk about it. Because I know it's annoying.
Call me Ishmael.
Right? It's so annoying.
Everyone comes for the Moby Dick references. Sorry. Continue.
Most of the chat. The guy's not there for most of the chat. You can't get him to answer a DM. He shows up and makes these trades with Mr. Good News, and both of the players he trades for get hurt.
Yep.
And it's like, well, now you kind of got to understand why maybe he is so, hands off all season. It works for him. Whatever he's doing, it works for him. Because, I think Al and I will definitely drive home that it's a volume trading thing, right? It's not about making one or two bullet trades that you nail. It's about just trading over and over and over again, hoping that you come out on top a little bit. Some version of that, right? And Judd is totally in the other camp, and both are successful. So
it's true.
It's frustrating. It pisses me off, but it works for him. So he won the first dynasty league that he joined. It was another Mel league. He won that in year one, and I think that just kind of got to his head. He's like, okay, well, I don't ever have to engage with any of these people. They suck at fantasy. So it is what it is.
We are beneath him. He has been in the playoffs all 3 years of this league. So whatever he's doing is working. Yeah. Consistently good every year.
It's not letting us snake him, and I think he regrets every trade he makes. So I think he's just like, I'm just not going to talk to you people, and I'm going to win.
And also I'm constantly distracted by your background, which is Judd in gigantic form on my computer screen with these very striking blue eyes.
You're sitting like in his mouth, so it's.
Did you guys know that Judd punched a Hurricane Katrina victim right in the face?
Because they were a Hurricane Katrina victim, or was it a good reason?
No, God, I hope not. No. So
survived the hurricane. Try Hurricane Judd.
So we were in high school during Katrina, and it displaced obviously a lot of families. A lot of Texas gets an influx of Louisiana athletes all at one time. We got a few in New Braunfels. There was definitely some rumors about some coaches going out and recruiting these guys, offering jobs to families who had really, blue chip players, saying, hey, you can come sell cars or whatever. And Lake Travis High School.
Some serious Buddy Garrity energy there.
Yeah. And you know, it's rumors. I don't know what happened. I was a kid at the time, but that's what we were
Definitely
being
happens.
told. Lake Travis High School, which is where Baker Mayfield went to high school. It is where Garrett Gilbert, he was like a UT quarterback that made his way into the league. They had a guy named Todd Reesing at the time. He went to Kansas and was like a fifth place finalist for the Heisman. He was pretty decent. So he was in our graduating class, and he was this superstar quarterback. So Lake Travis is one of these teams that kind of recruited some skill position players to come play with them. One of these guys is this running back, and I don't know his name. I wish I did. It'd make the story so much better. But we hear this kid's name like all week long in the scouting report. And we get to the game, and Judd is playing well. Things are getting heated. Lake Travis is pretty good team. So we're trying really hard. Todd Reesing is a good player. Judd makes a tackle. You know how football is. The guy's got chippy, and Judd goes to hit this kid through his face mask, which totally fails. And he just ends up clipping his own hand on the face mask and gets ejected from the game. Judd Apsher, the Juddernauts, ejected from a high school football game for punching a Hurricane Katrina. I'm going to say victim.
Sure.
And
victim multiple times over.
Multiple times over.
Football players punching each other with their helmets on is like my favorite thing ever. I enjoyed that when I enjoyed that when I played. It never fails to make me laugh every time I see it.
It's so bad.
You can tell the guys who didn't also play hockey. The hockey players, they know. Just lose the gloves, lose the helmets.
All I could think of now is like a wide receiver standing there, like shaking their hands. Like you sometimes see the hockey guys ready to go, like they're gonna drop the glove, like trying to shake the receiver's
peeling off the gloves.
Not quite the same energy as the hockey guy ready to toss everything.
No.
Okay. Have y'all heard of 6-man football?
I've heard like 7-on-7s before, but what is this 6-man?
Yeah.
So
Dallas Clark played that, the former Colts tight end, in somewhere in the Midwest.
Oh, no shit. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's where Dallas Clark played in high school.
A lot of these rural communities that are too tiny, like 28 guys in your graduating class, they play 6-man football, and every person on the field is eligible. So the offensive line, they snap the ball and then run out on a pass play, and it's wild. It's high scoring. It's pretty fun. I got to coach it for like half a year at a Christian academy here in town. I had a buddy whose dad got the job as like the head coach. That was like a paying, job.
Yeah.
And no one else on the coaching staff was paid. It was all volunteer from that point. And so he was like, hey man, yeah, you can come out. Absolutely. I was like a year or two out of high school. So I went and I coached 6-man, and this was at a small Christian academy here in Texas. And my buddy that offered me the position was the offensive coordinator, and he himself was like a 6-man high school football quote unquote legend. And it's a very low bar to get over to be a Christian school 6-man high school football quarterback. I, as an offensive lineman, felt infinitely more athletic and capable than this kid. But anyway, I digress. Point is, he had a temper, and he would just yell at the top of his lungs at these kids. And we're in a small stadium where like you can hear everything the coach is saying from the top row of the bleachers. And so like, and these kids were not good at all. Bad news bears. And so they're coming off the field, and he would just rip into them and yell. And all of the parents are like, hey dude, like you gotta chill. Like, we're a Christian academy. Like, we don't do this. And that was game 1. Game 2, he kept it up. Game 3, he kept it up. And finally, they gave his dad an ultimatum. And they were like, look, you got to fire your son, or let him, or we're going to fire you. And so we all got cleared out of there, like Brandon Staley's coaching stuff in the middle of the night, man.
Just too soon.
Just whitewashed us, just out of there. So that was fun, though. I got like half a season of 6-man football coaching, and to relive my glory days.
Sounds like you should get back into it.
Oh man, that'd be great. Get out of the kitchen, get out of the field, man.
How'd you come to use Big Biscuits as your sleeper handle and online persona.
Who was it that said that they used their Xbox screen name, or it was like a generated Xbox screen
That was
name?
Benign Rug.
Yeah,
Benign Rug.
Yeah.
Okay.
and you called that too.
Yep.
Yes,
that sounds like
that
an Xbox.
That was a good call, Al. Good call. Mine is not the exact same, but I definitely was playing Rock Band with a buddy and had to come up with a name for my drummer. It was a creative character that I tried to make look like myself, which just kind of looked like a pudgy little fat white man. And or no, a big fat white man is a better way to say it. And so I named him Big Biscuit. Not too long after that, just started naming my fantasy team the Big Biscuits, or Big Biscuit singular, whatever. And either one works. So it's kind of a lame story, but that is the truth of the matter.
Hey, it's more creative than mine.
Yeah. The Rock Band drummer's career was a lot shorter than my dynasty career. So that's it is now more of a fantasy football name than a Rock Band name.
His legacy lives on.
That's right. That's right.
The other question we ask everybody is how did you come into this league? Who invited you to join? But every answer has been, well, Big invited me. So I guess we kind of know you and Mel put this whole thing together. Do you have any recollection of how you selected the rest of us to be in here?
Yeah, sure, I do. And I've been thinking about this ever, as the season has progressed. Okay, so Mel deserves all the credit in the world for putting the league together. Let's just
You don't
get that out.
You don't have to say that. He's not here right now.
I'm editing this out.
Okay, thank you. Well, I just, I feel like maybe I stole some of his thunder whenever that topic got brought up, because he did put the thing together, and he's like, hey, I know you're a degenerate and you're in 60 stupid leagues and you must know some people. Everyone that I, bring to Mel, I want to be careful with. I want to vet myself, and they're not all winners, even the ones that make it through my vetting process, because I will play fantasy with almost anybody. But I'll bring him to Mel and I'll just be like, this guy, Benign Rug, I'm in this league with him and he seems like a fun guy. I give him a little inside info on just not, how they draft, anything like that, but just kind of how they are as a league mate. And so all of that stuff gets filtered through him. So I don't want to take all the credit. Also, half of the people that I didn't personally invite are just in leagues with us. Criddle is one of those. Flinch, it knows Mel, played rugby with Mel. He's in another league with us. And so I think at the end of the day, I invited Bari 5, I think was his screen name.
Yeah.
He was like one of the original. I invited him. I invited Benign Rug, Mr. Good News, Flea, and Judd. And then myself, that makes 6. So there's definitely 6 of us. And I hope I'm not forgetting anyone. And then there's you guys, Criddle. Bruno Davis, I might have invited. I don't, that's kind of fuzzy to me. I don't want to take credit for that.
You don't want to take credit for that one,
yeah. Yeah. That is the truth. I went out and I found these people. I thought it would be funny for me to dig up, the pitch that I gave these people as I was trying to invite them into the league. So I went back and did a lot of scrolling to get back, 2-3 years ago, whenever that was. And I did not find the gold mine on the other end that I was hoping to find. I thought that's, I think the funniest thing that I saw was Mr. Good News say, like, why isn't he just using the sleeper best ball settings? Just real earnest question.
A lot of people ask that question.
I asked him that question because I forgot.
Yeah. It wouldn't work. It would not be the same league without it. So I'm so glad that he does that. And I know that there's probably a part of him that wishes that all of us would be on board to switch it, but it just I don't want to change the flavor. So I think all of us have volunteered to help him out if we need to. So yeah,
definitely.
The guy put a good league together, but I went out and I found some people that I enjoyed in other leagues and that I had a good experience with, but also that I didn't know too well. And I think that's another thing that I've been really excited about, because there's a bunch of people that follow me league to league to league that I kind of get tired of. And I'm like, yeah, I know you, I play with you, I know how you are. The specific people that I brought into League About Nothing, especially like Flea, that's someone that I played with for a year or two in a giant 20-person single quarterback league. It was kind of fun. I don't know if she's still in it. I dropped out because of reasons, but I didn't have like a super close personal relationship with her or anything. It's not like, oh, I know the perfect person for this.
Yeah.
I definitely was going out and finding people that like I had always had positive experience with, but that I didn't know too well. And that I, I'm so glad that now those people are in the league, and I feel like they're some of the closest people to me on Sleeper. Flea, Benign Rug, Mr. Good News, especially, those three people I didn't have as much of a relationship with in the other leagues that I'm in with them. Now that we're all in League About Nothing, I feel like, when we're in our other leagues, I'm kind of giving them a wink and a nod, like, because as I've alluded to, I'm a little bit more...
I've seen you spend 3 hours discussing the intricacies of international trade.
I'm a little more modest and quiet in a lot of those other leagues. I don't let my hair down and party the way I do in League About Nothing. So, it's always fun interacting with them in other leagues because they know I'm being a little bit more subdued version of myself. But
I'm glad we get the full biscuit here.
Oh, yeah. Big time. The full biscuit. Absolutely. I love the group. And honestly, even the people that I didn't invite, dude, like George and Mike fell into this league so perfectly. And it's like any other time when you have a group of people who are all just chuckle fucking it up and just laughing and having a good time, and someone new walks into the room and you're just like, it's a little awkward. You don't know how they're going to fit in. Are they going to have the same sense of humor or whatever? And especially someone like me who I have to time people don't know what I'm talking about anyway, so like the learning curve for Georgia Mike to like drop into this league and try and just like get a handle on not only the league settings, not only the best ball element, not only all of that stuff, but just how we all function. And I got to commend the guy for handling that, and JMC as well. That's a guy that, I'll be flat honest, I didn't have much of a relationship with. I kind of thought he didn't like me too much. And then he goes on y'all's podcast, and I'm like, oh my God, this dude knows so much about football. He's so like, dude, the way that he just like, oh my God, it blew me away. And I'm texting, Mel and other people that I talked to, probably you guys, and just like, this JMC dude knows what he's talking about. He's a sharp cat. So
I wish that he was as active in the league chat as he is in the DMs, because that's how he is
for sure.
All the time. I mean, me and him talk ball, and the way he was on the show, that's how I know him.
That's how he is.
He's just not like that in the league chat.
I can't blame anyone for avoiding that league chat, but I'm glad that
it's kind of tough to navigate.
It could be a lot to keep. It could be a full-time job to keep up with the chat when it gets going.
Woo!
Yeah, it's a good mix. It's a good group. I mean, that's really the inspiration behind this show, because we're like, what can we do to add to this? Because it's a fun league and it deserves more. And getting to know everybody was kind of the big piece for us, Yeah.
It really did feel like Flea interview, like the dam had broken, like it's just like, okay, like we are now getting personal. We're now getting to know each other. Everyone's going to have to line up and do this at some point. Judd, French, and, pay your dues, do the interview, come on here, let people get to know you. And it has brought us all so much closer together. I talk to people more than I talk to my friends and family.
Well, we went through some of the final season statistics, and Sleeper keeps track of how many messages you have in the chat. And overall, as a group, from last year to this year, is like 10 times as the amount of activity. And we were a pretty active league last year. Yeah. And this year, I think it's exactly what you're talking about, is the interviews and getting everybody to kind of know the person behind the avatar and the screen name a little bit better. It just kind of opened everyone up. It's been a lot of fun.
It's such a fantasy football, man, harbors this kind of like environment where everyone's so guarded and everyone is trying to deceive the other person in a way to win a trade or to win some, it's not always deceptive. That's not the only way to do it. But I guess like you encounter that so often that you put up a defensive wall whenever you start to talk to someone. So that's not the only way to get it done, but it just so happens that everyone's kind of like constantly worried. And I think that even when this concept, when you guys first started talking about the podcast, I'm like, well, I don't want to go on there and start talking about my strategy and what I'm trying to do here, as if there's some sort of
all your secrets.
There's no coherent strategy going on here. That's the first secret. I am flying by the seat of my pants.
Yeah, I almost jumped into that when you were talking earlier about bulk trading and like the fact that like, like some people are trying to do like the one big one, some people are trying to do all the little ones. I'm like, all the little ones sounds like Al here trying to get 1% better in every trade, but
I'm a day trader.
Yeah, you're just trying to win on the margins right there. You're just trying to incrementally increase until all of a sudden you look down one day and you have 25 of the best 30 players in the league on your roster, which is patently impossible. You're never going to be able to do it, but you're going to keep trying.
It's too sharp of a league, and we're too close. No one's going to come in here with a stupid offer and rip somebody off. Like, it's not going to happen. Not in this league. We don't have any tacos in this league. Everybody's a sharp player, and apparently half the league is scientists, so we really aren't gonna do progress. We ain't drinking nobody in this league. The rest of us schlubs are just trying to get by.
No shit, man.
I talked to you about this previously, but I don't think we covered it in chat, and I know obviously we haven't covered it here in person. You're not in many best ball style leagues, correct?
No, I'm in 3 dynasty best ball leagues. I was really, really into one period of my history, my fantasy history that I left out. I was really into best ball right before I got into dynasty. And I was doing, the volume thing there, 50, 60 best ball leagues on MFL, the MFL 10s when those were, the 8-hour email drafts. I did that pretty heavy for 2 or 3 years. It was pretty financially successful with that, and then got into Dynasty and was not financially successful, but it was just so much more fun. To hell with the best ball leagues. For Dynasty purposes, it conflicts the best ball and the Dynasty. Yeah. I have come to love this league, obviously, because I've been successful this year, but in general, I kind of like lineup. I like setting a lineup. I like separating, the players from the people that I don't know what the hell they're doing. But the catch-all element of best ball is a totally different animal. And it's fun because you guys are fun. It's fun because the league is fun. But do I like the fact that, Jake Browning can come up from off someone's bench and screw me? Like, absolutely not.
That's just because you're upset about it being Jake Browning.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. That was
if it
the
was
one
Joe
guy
Flacco, on the other hand.
I remember during the Joe Flacco thing, I kept saying, like, I know when to pick up. I'm not just picking up any quarterback. I'm picking up Joe Flacco. I'm not messing around with Jake Browning over here. Yeah. And then Flacco had a nice game, and I, obviously I want to chirp a little bit, but then Browning goes out and just does like so much better. And I'm like, okay. I should wait a little week and see if Browning comes back down to earth. And then he did well again. So got to hand it to the guy. Unlike, the Tim Boyles and the other fools that have come along this year.
Listen, we can't all be Jake Browning and Tommy Cutlets.
That's right. Josh Dobbs. What a weird season Josh Dobbs is at.
It's gone so many different ways. It's incredible.
I told you by the end of the year you'd be happy you took that third for him. Can't get a third now.
Dude, I sold him.
People were buying for first at one point.
I sold him for a few seconds. I saw him go for a first.
Yeah.
I was definitely got to the point where I stopped selling him because I started thinking, like, is this going to be a Geno Smith? Is he going to, take over the Vikings job next year? Like, maybe I should chill. And then 2 weeks later, the dude is fantasy dead. So it happens so quickly.
It's bizarre how he went from starting in one city to starting in another city and then to the third string quarterback in, what are we, like a month and a half removed top? Not even, like, are we a month removed from when he was on Arizona?
I believe that's called the regression to the mean. I mean, we
Yeah,
have like 7 years of him being awful and a couple game
Arizona
stretch
didn't
where he
like-
was great.
Arizona fans did not like him, and at least for a few weeks, it was kind of like the same thing that's happened in Minnesota, right? So he came in, he played pretty normal, then had a few weeks of playing well, and then just started looking pretty bad. And
He looks like a backup
by the
quarterback.
time, right, by the time they traded him, it was kind of like, oh, thank God we got out from under that dude. People were mad about the compensation, whatever. That's not the point. But it's just kind of the general feeling of like, okay, we got something from Dobbs, move on. Then he goes to Minnesota, does the same thing all over again. And it's kind of like, oh, like maybe the surrounding talent is so much better. Maybe the situation and, the coaches and the organization just, are so much better that he's actually going to thrive here. And, like I said, he's now benched for Nick Mullins. So I kind of think he'll get back in there, though, at least one more game. What do you think?
I mean, it's only Nick Mullins in front of him.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a long history of Nick Mullins.
Well, no, Jaron Hall is
For
now back
fantasy.
in front of him as well because he's the third stringer now.
That's fair, but it's also Jaron Hall. Anybody who watched him play at BYU the last couple of years, he's not a insurmountable roadblock.
Arthur Smith went back to Desmond Ridder, which was
Well,
maybe
again,
they go back to Dobbs.
it was Taylor Heineke again, not a huge roadblock.
I'm just baiting Jarsal into talking about Arthur Smith a little bit.
It's not an act. He loves Arthur
It's
Smith.
not an act. I absolutely love what Arthur Smith is doing. Again,
All real.
part of it is the fact that like I kind of enjoy that he can just go out there and do whatever he wants. And when I say it's performance art, I'm not kidding. I really think that man went out there one day and was like, what would really piss everybody off is if, on this one we threw it to, like who I don't know, their fourth string tight end.
Cole
Like,
Pruitt.
yeah, Pruitt.
Right, yeah,
Exactly. I really think he was like, I don't think for a second he was like, this is our best chance at a successful play. I think he was like, yeah, this could piss some people off, and then he did it, and that brings me an immense amount of joy.
Do you think it started that way, or do you think that after a few games it was like, I'll show you, and
I think honestly it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think he truly believes that he's got like a system that he can make anything work type of, because you know how a lot of these coaches are, they just fully believe in their own stuff. They drink their own Kool-Aid, they're drinking their own bathwater, whatever you want to say.
That's how you get to the highest level, though.
Exactly. And then part of it is like they hear what the media says. They've got Twitter, or they can go online and see what all the fans are complaining about, and they can listen to the local radio and all that stuff, and listen to the, Joe in the truck calling in at 2:30 in the afternoon on a Friday already drunk and bitching that Arthur Smith isn't using the guys they drafted. Like they see all this. So like when he could just be like, "Nah, I'm going to show these guys." It's great.
the only thing I don't like about it is when he caves.
Yeah.
When he does start feeding those, like Bijan, he was getting so much crap for not giving Bijan the ball, and then all of a sudden he gives him the ball, or for benching Ritter. He caved on both of those things.
Well,
if
I think he had internal pressure on the Ritter thing. I don't think that was his decision because he went back to Ritter at the earliest possible opportunity.
Well, that's because he saw Taylor Heineke play.
Yeah.
And he said, well, maybe Ritter isn't as bad as we thought.
Yeah.
Could have just traded Heineke for a third-round pick.
Oh, too soon.
I didn't actually trade him for. Did I? What did I trade? I traded him for Kirk Cousins. That's what I should have said. No, but honestly, I believe that Arthur Smith does intentionally do things occasionally to piss off fantasy managers and the media people, and even sometimes the fans.
You're alone. You're alone with that. I don't believe that. These football coaches don't give a shit about anyone else. They're just trying to run the plays that they think are going to get them points and win games. They do not give a shit about what anybody says.
I think he does. I don't think it's a large portion of his game plan and decision making. I think it's that like 10% at the back end where it's like, I could do this and, like the two birds with one stone type of thing.
Did you see McVay when he was talking about that late Kyron Williams touchdown a couple weeks ago when they should have been running out the clock? And he said, why did you call play and get him to
Oh, yeah,
touchdown?
because I had Kyron on my team.
Yeah, he's on my fantasy team.
No way, I did not see that. Do you think any of the Arthur Smith stuff has to do with him being the son of a billionaire?
I think he doesn't have to worry quite as much about losing his job as some of the other ones. Yeah, but
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think it maybe, changed some of his mentality towards some of dealing with that pressure as well.
Yeah,
I don't know.
fair.
In a good
I
way
mean,
and a bad way.
Also, he seems like an interesting coach to play for. That the players don't seem bothered by it. So
As long as you're winning.
Right.
players
Listen,
don't seem
players-
bothered by it. There's got to be something going on, right?
Players will put up with it if you're winning. As soon as you stop winning, then the players don't want to listen to your shit. That's 100% it. It's how it is for every coach. You want to run a crazy system, hey, as long as it works and we're winning, then fine, we'll deal with your shit. As soon as it stops, then the players will just tune you out. You can look at all the failed college coaches that came in with gimmicky offenses and it worked for a little bit and then stopped working, and then they lost the team, and then they were back to college.
So earlier I mentioned that I wanted to go back and find the old nuggets of when I pitched the best ball idea to everyone in the league. And what I was looking for was me kind of telling everyone what it ended up being bullshit, which is
how great
it's,
best ball is.
how great best ball is. You don't have to worry about anything. You just do waivers occasionally and the trades are there. And this is the most intense league I've ever been in. Like if a third string player, tears his ACL, like we're all over the fourth string. Like it's just
Fourth string's already owned.
It's already owned. Yeah, exactly. So we got to pick up the fifth string at that point. Like it is not the low key affair that I thought it was going to be at all.
Dude, I know I've been paying attention to practice squad like transactions for the last 3 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When I try to explain to people, like some people are like, oh, you play Dynasty, right? And they're like, how's that? That's pretty cool, right? They're like, do you have anybody good on your roster? And I'm like, yeah, but I don't care about those guys. I care about the really crappy guys at the end of the roster.
Oh, dude. Explaining fantasy football in general to someone who doesn't know is just the absolute worst thing. I cannot stand it. And because people I know that I do it passionately, it's like the topic of conversation at the dinner table all the time. And I don't know if it's as painful for you guys as it is for me, but it's bad.
100%. Wait till your kid's older, then try to explain it to her. That's even funner.
Dude, no lie.
You know how many times I've tried to explain this to my children? They ask me all the time.
Presumably more often now that we're talking about it every Tuesday evening.
Right.
People ask me a lot about the DraftKings win that I had, and I try and explain that to them. And it involves the defense because you have the defenses on DraftKings, and just trying to explain how like I was in sixth place because I had the 10 points from the defense, but then I got scored on, and so I fell down the leaderboard, and they just like, well, why did you start with 10 points instead of 0? Why are you counting down instead of up? At least they're asking the right questions at that point. But yeah, man, I usually just go with the poker analogy. Like it's all at the core. It's the same game. You're just playing different versions of that, different styles. So, because people have, no concept, and they get so confused because they watch a show like The League and they don't understand like how it's different from DFS and how that's different from Best Ball and how that's different from Keeper and Dynasty. It's wild. So that's part of the reason why I'm yapping at you guys so often, because we all understand each other like on a whole different level. We have shorthand where we can just discuss those things, get it off our chest.
Yeah, you don't have to fill in the background information for us to understand why you're frustrated about guys in a 10-team league not drafting quarterbacks.
All right. Try explaining to your coworkers why no counter pisses you off so much. It just can't happen.
That's why I don't talk to any of my coworkers.
Speaking of
I have that option.
That's part of the job that I do that I like the best is that once I get started with a job, I'd go to the road
You
and
don't
I
have
don't have to talk
coworkers.
to anybody ever. You
You don't
know,
have any
No.
you don't have any ride-alongs.
three times a day I have to go, oh, I need to get a signature for this package, and that's the end of the conversation.
I'm so jealous of you guys for that. I'm like tied down to a grill, and
Yeah,
I
you're in a
have
kitchen.
three teenagers that surround me,
Oh,
That sounds terrible.
and they have like 1/16 of the responsibility and stuff on their plate to handle, and so they're just constantly like in their own world thinking about teenager stuff and
Mhm.
telling me stories, and I just have to, and I can't go anywhere. You're chained to the grill, and
Listen,
and
I
these people-
live with 4 teenagers. I know what you're talking about.
That's fair. Your coworkers are your teenagers, and you can't avoid them.
No, that's not true. 3 of them. One of them's not a teenager anymore. She's older now. But yeah, it's unpleasant. I know what you mean by being chained down.
Yeah. You're like looking for excuses to leave the room when you really have no reason to get out of there.
I gotta go record, so you all have to get out of here.
So you do large scale meals and stuff as well, you said, right?
Yeah, it's a weird place. So John Newcomb, like Wimbledon tennis pro from the 60s, John Newcomb, started the
Any
ranch,
relation to Duke?
Duke Nukem.
Sorry, bad joke.
John, we call him Nuke. So Nuke started the ranch in '68, right?
Yeah.
And the whole idea was it was just a place for his buddies to kind of like get together, like all these professional tennis players in the off season to go to the ranch and practice and have lodging and everything. Then they added an academy, so we have like boarding students that live there with us. They do school online, so we feed them like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There's about 40 of them, right? So that's like my base business. I feed those kids every single day, like come hell or high water, no matter what else we're doing. But on top of that, we also have a ropes course that brings in like ROTC groups and leadership groups that are there for team building stuff.
Synergy.
Synergy, yeah, trust falls and the like. We have like our adult tennis program, which is just like a week long or weekend long, tennis clinic, and we feed them the meals. We have like a conference room that brings in like old ladies that come do quilting circles or scrapbooking circles, church groups, karate,
All right.
anything like that. So my job changes as far as like the number that I'm feeding every single day, and we get up to 300 or 400, but sometimes I'll have 2 adults, so but it's all buffet style. It's not plate service.
Oh, okay.
So
I was gonna say, are you guys like cooked to order, or no? It's all whatever
it's
the
all buffet
meal of the day is. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. We have those kids that we're feeding, and that's kind of like one dining room the kids are eating in, and then we have an adult dining room, and so 2 concurrent buffet lines happening at the same time. Sometimes the same food. So that's what I do, and then John Newcomb comes twice a year for what we call Fantasy Week, and that's what I was railing back during.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We talking about that one.
in October. I was just like, I'm there 6-7 days out of that week, like long shifts. I never get to leave the place, and I just need some sort of outlet. So
You were in rare form that week, my friend.
Yeah, you guys were my outlet there. So, but yeah, those guys are wild, man. It's a fantasy camp. So, do y'all know about like fantasy baseball camps, fantasy sports camps?
They do one out here.
I had never heard of that concept before. I started working at this place.
Old people reliving their glory days.
Yeah, basically, it's
fair enough.
It's like, I think, let's say 10 former professional tennis players from the 60s and 70s, and they are the legends. And we pay them to come, and they do like clinics and stuff like that. But then the fantasy element is the rich doctors and lawyers that pay their thousands of dollars to come stay with us for the week and play tennis alongside their idols. So you're playing doubles with John Newcomb. You're playing in a big tournament with, Rod Laver, some of the biggest, a lot of Australians. Yeah. And so it's a cool thing for them. It's very, I'm drawing a massive blank. It's in California. They've got a giant owl, the conspiracy theories, a Bohemian Grove. You guys into Bohemian Grove?
I don't know this one.
Well, it's just that'll be another conversation for another time. It's just a conspiracy thing. I don't really believe in it because I work at the ranch and I get to see these guys go through their fantasy week camp. It's very similar to what they're doing out of Bohemian Grove, in my opinion, which is just absolutely nothing. It's just a bunch of guys getting together, drinking, eating, and doing silly rituals just because it makes them feel young again, And it's cheesy. It's super cheesy. If you want to YouTube it, there's videos of John Newcomb doing, funny chants and stuff like that. Like they really are not very entertaining to people our age, but man, they sure love it, these old guys. So I thought you guys would know about Bohemian Grove.
I'm on the Wikipedia page right now, reading and listening at the same time. This is fascinating. I'm going to do some deep diving into this one later.
Well, I saw a video the other day on YouTube. This is why it's like probably top of mind for me, of a guy like breaking in to Bohemian Grove in the middle of the night and filmed the whole thing. And I just bring it up because it reminds me so much of my job, which is like, if you didn't know what I was doing or what these guys were doing, I should say, you might attach some sort of conspiracy to it as well, because it just is so out there. It's so weird. It's not the way we entertain ourselves. Like, we don't get up and do rituals and chants. It's just a funny deal. I got nothing better to say. Bohemian Grove, Wikipedia.
Fascinating.
Are you guys into conspiracy theory stuff? I am not.
Not really.
I am, in the sense that I like to know that it exists and know about them.
I love hearing the conspiracy theories. I don't believe any of the conspiracy theories.
Right.
Well, Criddle told us we sound like a conspiracy theory podcast based on the name. So
the bias part, yeah.
Well, and there was also like an old timey conspiracy radio show that was hosted by this guy named Dean Norrie, and I think it was called like Coast to Coast AM or something. Maybe I'm conflating two different stories, but yeah. Anyway,
Space goes coast to coast.
Space goes, yeah. I have an interesting job. It's a weird place, man, and it's the most unique thing I've ever done. I don't necessarily enjoy it. I don't hate it. It pays the bills, but my job is just to serve buffet style food to whatever guests they bring in the door. So that's what I do.
We've talked about the difference before between cooking and preparing food for, large numbers of people at a time versus, like a single plate or whatever. And it's in my opinion, like almost a more difficult skill to master, to have everything be ready at one time. Like I've talked about my first ever job that I got taxes taken out, actual job, was as a banquet server at weddings, and they would be preparing food for 200 people, and it basically all had to be ready at the same time. And that's like a huge production. I have a lot of respect for anyone who can manage that and can get it all done properly.
And I would say even that, it's hard for me now just to cook at home, because I'm just cooking for me and my wife and, or family, friends, whoever's over there. And it's a totally different style.
Yep.
And, the timing and everything is different. And they look at me like, dude, aren't you a professional cook? And yeah, but it's...
So you cook it for 4 people. It shouldn't be a lot easier, shouldn't it?
It's a different ball game.
Every time we have somebody join us, one of the managers, I look back at the history of my conversation with them in the DMs. I didn't have that kind of time to read all of our conversations for the last 4 years, but I did scroll all the way back up to the top from 4 years ago just to see how it all started off. This all started off when we were in a startup draft in one of Mel's other leagues. I think it was the Sleeper Invitational, where you got the 101 and I got the 102. Do you remember who you took with the 101 in that league and who I took with the 102?
No, but I have a feeling you wouldn't be
Would you
asking.
care to venture a guess? Think about this. 4 years ago, who you would have taken at the 101?
Whew, I guess that was Kyler, eh?
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a wild guy I am. I'm not competitive in that league either.
I was not competitive this year. I won that league 2 years ago, but I was not competitive this year, mostly because I missed Stafford for a chunk of the year, and Daniel Jones was terrible for the entire year and is now gone.
That's why you don't draft Giants.
He is
you
literally
personally.
like the only. Yeah, no, that's exactly true. I don't. He is the only Giants player that I have on any of my rosters outside of Bellinger and like any guys that I picked up off of like free agency and waivers.
Fringe guys.
Like I don't. This is gonna be tough next year because like the Giants are gonna have within a couple of years a new quarterback. I'm sorry, Daniel Jones. I love you, but it's gonna happen. It's probably not gonna happen this year. It's probably gonna happen in 2 years.
DeVito is saving Daniel Jones from having to compete with a top 5 pick, probably.
He wouldn't have to compete. They would just something would happen.
Well, he's saving Daniel Jones from them bringing in another highly drafted quarterback.
That's a fair point.
Right. Well, that's a perfect example of like, obviously I'm going to do some crazy stuff and take Kyler Murray 101. I think that me taking Kyler in that league was just to, I don't know, show off and peacock a little bit that I was willing to do something like that. When obviously, if I'm giving someone advice, the better move is to move back there several times instead of taking him 101. But I had to show you guys, I love Kyler Murray and I still do. I will not waver. I don't care about all this video game talk, this Call of Duty. Save your Call of Duty jokes. I don't care. I love Kyler Murray. So
I can tell you if he wasn't on your roster in this league, there would have been many trade offers made in the last calendar year. I'm not even bothering. I'm not even bothering in this league.
It was a good time to buy the dip. He'll be back.
Yep.
I wrote down Kyler. I'm going to wax poetic here about Kyler Murray for
Go
a
for
little
it.
bit. I wrote down these high school stats just because they blew my mind. So the first ever 2-time Mr. Texas football, which that's never, think about all of the people that have ever played football in the state of Texas. First ever 2-time Mr. Texas football, the Gatorade Player of the Year, 3-time state champion. Every single year that he was a starter, he won the state championship. 42-0 as a starter. 10,000 yards passing, 117 touchdowns, 4,000 yards rushing, 69 more touchdowns. He was an Under Armour All-American in football and baseball, the only person to ever do that. And I think the most impressive Kyler Murray thing is the first person to ever be drafted in the top 10 of 2 major sports, MLB and NFL.
You and I.
So I know the guy hasn't come to fruition the way that I would have liked, absolutely. And I'm going to ride him forever. I don't care. Anytime you go 42-0 in the state of Texas, that's damn impressive.
It is.
Yeah, it's slightly different from me going to 3 straight state championships in Rhode Island.
Is that true though? Did you do that?
Yeah. But it's slightly different in the state of Texas.
Well, shit, man, that's really impressive too.
It's not that impressive. It's Rhode Island.
Hey, you can only play the teams across from you. So
we played some future NFLers. I played against some future NFLers. Will Blackman.
You played against Will Blackman, yeah.
Will Blackman apparently now is a famous Twitter person. But yeah, I played against him in high school. And track and field, he destroyed everybody in every event. He would just show up for meets and try new events that he never did. He's like, I'll try the triple jump. Someone show me how to do it. And then he would break the state record. He was ridiculous. To be an NFL level athlete in a small, state like that, it's insane to see the difference in talent level.
Yeah.
We played against him. He was a running back when we played, and he had a broken hand. He was playing with one hand in a cast, and he scored 6 touchdowns against us with one hand. It was ridiculous.
I would have never guessed that Will Blackman was from Rhode Island. That he does not have that vibe at all.
Yep. Yeah, it's just funny to see the difference of how amazing these guys were in high school, and then they get to the pros. The fact they made it to the pros is amazing, and then but they're like fringe guys, special teamers. Not
Right.
So I can't even imagine playing against someone like Kyler Murray, who's an elite NFL player, as a high school. It's just it's like Derrick Henry playing in high school. It just looks like a joke, like he's playing against children. It looks like he's playing against Pop Warner kids, just destroying them.
I didn't personally play against him, but 2 years after I graduated, New Braunfels played Jaquiz Rogers. And
Quiz.
Yeah. So that name was like, I was Jaquizing before anyone.
Yeah. I was a big Quiz fan.
That sounds like a problem for your wife, unfortunately.
Quiz Rogers.
Yeah, that's a name I have not heard in
We need to remember
10 years.
We need to remember some guys segment on the podcast.
Sure. The Sam Congato All-Stars.
Sam Congato. That was one of my proudest fantasy draft picks.
No, you were...
Peyton Hillis was my proudest one still.
No, you were eternally proudest about Arian Foster was your favorite.
Arian Foster
because you held him like whatever year it was that he had his like breakout at the end of the season. You were like, I had him that entire year waiting.
Yeah, I knew right away when I saw him play in the preseason. I was like, who's this undrafted guy that ran like a 4.9 40? He looks so smooth. He looks so good on the field. I said, he's going to play at some point. This depth chart is not insurmountable. That's what sucks you into fantasy when you find guys like that and you're in on them before they really break out. That's why I enjoy Dynasty so much. I wish I had gotten into it earlier because it's like my wheelhouse knowing these third, fourth, fifth string guys.
Right. You're damn right, man.
That's what I was doing in redraft for 20 years, finding guys that nobody cared about and drafting them. And they're like, who the hell's this? Adam Thielen when he was a special teamer for the Vikings. That 8th year breakout.
Who's your favorite football player of all time?
No, like favorite like player to watch play or favorite player like personality wise? Like what are we looking at here?
I can tell you who's been on more of my rosters than anyone else over my life is Aaron Brooks, former Saints quarterback, and Michael Vick's cousin. Aaron Brooks.
Donald Driver was on every one of your
Donald
teams.
Driver too. I had him on like 10 years of teams.
I mean, if we're talking highest exposure rate over the course of my fantasy career, it was honestly probably Frank Gore.
That's just because he played 35 years.
No, I had Frank Gore on my team almost every year in redraft. Like hey, let's just draft Frank Gore again. That seems to work out pretty well.
Any criteria will do because I think that kind of shows what's important to you. Is like
Well, I'll put it this way: my favorite player that I've ever watched play in person is without a doubt Gronk. Dude was just an absolute maniac out there on every play. All right, so I have a dishwasher in the kitchen that you can set on a timer for how long until it turns on. At 9 o'clock, I set it for a 4-hour timer until it turns on. And I'm like, if I'm still up at 1, we've got problems.
Hey, we are.
Guess what just happened, guys? The dishwasher kicked on.
Hey, it's only 10 o'clock for me. So.
Yeah. But no, Gronk was just so much fun to watch. I mean, I've been to more Patriots games than anything else because my in-laws have season tickets and they don't go to all the games, and like my father-in-law doesn't love going to the night games. So I got to go to all the primetime games, for like the last 12 years of Patriots games. And, for the vast majority of that time, the Patriots were very good and they were getting a lot of good high profile night games. So I've been to some really fun ones.
That's pretty awesome. I've never been to an NFL game at all. So
you got to get out there, man.
Never.
I got to do that. Never. Houston would be the way to go because it's so cheap. But
we used to.
You got a bunch of Texans on your team, so.
Yeah, not as cheap as they used to be. Those tickets.
Yeah, those will be going up at a steep rate the next few years. I can't believe Stroud. You said went 7th overall in that startup there. I can't believe that. But that's aggressive.
I'm surprised he didn't go earlier.
I used to do once a year try to get a stadium trip in. We managed it for like 3 years, and Ryan and I went to New Orleans. That was a fun one.
To the Superdome to see the Saints and Falcons play one year.
Saints and Falcons with that Chris Ivory 56-yard touchdown run.
Yep.
That was a play.
Oh man, I really like Chris Ivory too. I like those big backs that can move.
You have a type.
I have a soft spot for big running backs.
Ben Jarvis Green Ellis got me through a season. That was
The law
Cincinnati.
firm.
Yeah.
He was just 4 yards every time. He's that you need 3 yards, he'll get you 4. You need 5 yards, he'll get you 4.
Right. The old who's that? Leroy Horde. You need 3 yards, I'll get you 3 yards. You need 5, I'll get you 3 yards.
I know what I can do, sir. You had sent a screenshot back in, I don't know, August-ish about your exposure rates on players. At the time, you had a 66.67% exposure rate on Kyler.
Sounds about, yeah. And I picked up a few cents through trades and whatnot. I try not to trade for him too much, because you got to pay the price.
Yes.
Most of my Kyler shares were his rookie season when I acquired him. So
yeah, that's why it's impressive. I mean, if you have 100% shares of Keontae Ingram, all right, I understand because you can get him
he had a
much for free everywhere.
78.33% exposure.
But to have that high of exposure to a guy that's a first, second round pick most years, that's that's an impressive share.
A couple other guys up there. The only people above Kyler were Keontae Ingram and Eric Ezekanma there. If I'm pronouncing that right, I can never actually get it properly done. But those guys were at 70. Then Ritter was at 66.67 with Kyler. But those were your highest exposure rates by far.
That's embarrassing, right?
I liked Ritter as well. And I would have scooped him up in a lot of places because he was going in the mid-third round.
I got a little aggressive on him. I took him as high as 107. I think but I also got several in the third round. So, the appeal with Ritter was definitely his value and how cheap you could get him. And I took that appeal and lit it on fire and just said, I like the guy. and I took him really high just to show off, I guess. I don't know. But I stacked a bunch of Ritter shares. So I can't sit here and say, oh, I got them all cheap. Like I definitely did not. I definitely overpaid for quite a few of them and have lived to regret that decision.
Yeah, we all have our guys. It happens.
Yeah. I don't know why I got so enamored with it. It's almost like I feel like I have to have one every year, and I need to learn the lesson that I don't have to have a guy that I value in that same way every single year, but it just kind of happens naturally.
Just wait until this year when there's a 5th round rookie receiver that starts popping in the preseason and people are throwing 1st round picks around because they're thinking he's the next Puka, not realizing that he's an extreme outlier and is very unlikely to happen every single year. But it's going to happen like clockwork. There will be some unheralded late round 3rd J3 guy that has one big preseason game and he will get traded for 1st round picks. It's going to happen.
Oh, big time. I looked back at my notes on the rookies and I wrote down, the only note I wrote down for Puka was Mormon Michael Pittman, which I don't even think is it's not even a good comp.
I called him Mormon Debo, so you're pretty close.
That's better. and he
Both
doesn't play like
racist.
Michael Pittman.
I said, watch this guy run the ball. I don't care he's a receiver. I don't care that he didn't run a fast 40. I said, watch him run the ball. This dude is dynamic. I was like, he fell late in the draft because he was always hurt. He was never on the field. But when he was out there, he was one of the most productive players in college football. His yards per route run was insane. Like it was on level with Jamar Chase, which is off the charts good. One of the best in the last decade. But he was always hurt. And he played for BYU. And we've seen BYU guys not translate because most of them are 10 years older than their peers. And they're playing in the Mountain West against teams like San Diego State, where I am. These are not real teams. But, most of the time, these guys don't hit 99% of the time. They're nothing.
Yeah.
But there was a path there.
Paging Jalen Hurd.
Oh, don't do that to me. At least Jalen Hurd was in the SEC.
You made
He was a running back.
You made a Debo comp, and every time you make a Debo comp, all I can think of is you getting real excited about Jalen Hurd.
Listen, Jalen Hurd was going to be the Debo until his knees exploded many times.
Until they drafted Debo.
He played running back over Alvin Kamara. He was a good running back. Dude's 6'4", 230, converted running back. That was what Shanahan was looking for. He wanted that player. He couldn't stay on the field. His knees did not want to cooperate.
Yeah.
I stand by that comp.
Much better than mine. And I wish I had, taken a bit more note on that one. So
I keep a spreadsheet that we've been using for the last few years in our shared league to draft rookies, and I had to take a lot of it out because now we're competitors in this league. So I have to take some of my notes and keep those to myself. But we talk rookies.
You don't. You've made one draft pick in 4 years.
That's what I mean. I do all this work and I never draft anybody for this league.
You don't have to take any of the notes out. Also, you act like I'm not looking at the guys on my own or something anyways. Like I know. Over here like copying off of your notes.
And then we talk about it and I tell you everything how I feel about every player anyway, so it really doesn't matter. Yeah. And now this year I'm going to tell everybody how I feel, at least everyone in this league who listens. So I really got to trade my picks away.
It's true. You do. I don't think you're going to hesitate to do that anyways.
No. I'm almost out. I got a couple more to go.
Speaking of trading picks away, can I interest either one of you gentlemen in a lightly used Patrick Taylor? Big
he's the healthiest. He's the healthiest running back on the team.
I screwed myself over with that Eckler trade, and I'm over the limit, and I would have to drop someone, and I'm too precious with my players to outright drops 2 people just to make a trade. So I have yet to do that. I think I'm locked in with my roster.
Is very, very simple. We make 2 trades. First, you trade me like 5 players, and then I trade you 6 players back.
What? That math doesn't work.
The problem is we'd have to have legal rosters to make the trade. If you could trade with the legal rosters, it wouldn't be a problem.
Oh, absolutely. But that's why Mel put an end to that.
Yeah. That bastard and closing loopholes.
Yeah, exactly. Because he knew you two would.
I'm pretty sure
we would absolutely have.
That's the only reason.
Any loophole he left open. He knew that from the start.
That's the only reason we're in this league, so we can find all the loopholes.
Yeah. This league was just workshopping a set of rules for his actual league, and it got out of hand, and here we are a year later, or several years later. Also, I would take Wilson over Kyler in your startup.
He's like too late.
I would.
Kyler's more likely to make it back to you in the next round, but
you're not getting Garrett Wilson coming back.
The problem is we're talking to Big, and he's not going to be happy getting the next best quarterback if it's not Kyler.
You mean Brock Purdy?
Right. It's not a tier for him. It's just Kyler. There's not a tier. There's not a tier. There's not a tier of 5 quarterbacks that he likes here. It's just Kyler by himself. Kyler is the tier.
That's the joke. Listen, you can draft Trey McBride if you want. You said it was tight end premium. Speaking of,
I'm glad you talked me.
I look a lot better on that Trey McBride pick now than I did like a year ago.
I didn't like him as a prospect in that rookie year. Just reinforced that, but he looks a lot better this year.
Yeah.
So as you've heard, we've gotten candy bar takes. We've gotten some controversial ones. Some I was going to say benign ones, but we've got benign rug in the league, and I don't mean to single him out. So some tame ones, I'll say.
Are we sure? Do you have any being a rug?
We could ask.
No, I'm pretty sure we confirmed with him that it was benign rug.
yes, we did. And it's not Ben Ingram either.
No, but I mean,
Sorry.
it's an idea.
Yeah. Well, he had said that some people think his name is Ben.
Ben, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Eingrung. Yeah. Sorry, I derailed you. Go ahead.
It's okay, Mr. By GG Biscuits. I got nothing. I tried to break it down. It didn't work. We're going to move on from that one quickly. No, do you have any candy bar takes that you wanted to get, or any other hot takes on any topic that you wanted to get out now and put in front of the league?
Stir up the league.
Oh, man. Well, I do not like chocolate personally. I tolerate it. So Hershey's or Hershey's Kiss or Hershey's Bar or anything that's 100% chocolate is for the birds. Not interested. Don't want it.
Straight at Criddle with your first thought. I like it.
Yeah. I'll take a Snickers. That's about the only candy bar that I'm interested in. That
Straight
has
at
chocolate.
Alvarez with your second one. I like it. Keep going.
Yeah, we're good.
Collecting bodies.
I like fruity. I like a Jolly Rancher, a Skittle. Have you had a Jolly Rancher, Al?
No.
You look like a Jolly Rancher.
I don't know if I should be offended by that or not. Said they were delicious.
I don't know either.
I was thinking about chicken wings. Have you had chicken wings?
Yes, I have had chicken wings. Love chicken wings.
That seems like such a dumb question, but then like it's not if you've been paying attention, right?
Yeah, based on my history, I understand asking that.
Right.
It's not unreasonable.
Tonight, so that was top of mind. What kind of chicken wings do you like?
Chicken wings. Chicken wings
garlic parmesan
from a Chinese restaurant. Those are my favorite.
Oh, yeah,
I get that
wings.
100% of the time. No, not the sticky ones, just regular fried chicken wings.
All right.
If that's on the menu, I order that 100% of the time when I get Chinese food.
I go for buffalo.
Like a sauce?
No, just regular
Buffalo
fried chicken. No, buffalo, just regular fried chicken.
I go for buffalo.
Usually they're like salt and pepper wings or something.
Do you like buffalo wings?
I tolerate them. I'd rather have just the salt and pepper.
Blue cheese or ranch?
Neither.
No. Don't be ridiculous.
I don't put sauce on my stuff. No ketchup, mustard.
What about you, Jarsal?
Hot sauce, nothing.
In terms of chicken wings?
Yeah, blue cheese or ranch?
No, I don't do either. I just want the buffalo. Give me the spice.
Strange to me.
I've actually never had ranch or blue cheese.
We're from Rhode Island. We don't get nice things. We don't even get cheese on pizza.
I had blue cheese crumbles on a sandwich for the first time the other day. Probably won't do that again. That was within the last calendar week for the first time in my life. But no, I've never tried ranch. I have 4 children who devour the stuff. We have gigantic bottles of ranch.
And you never just like stick your finger in the ranch?
No, it looks awful.
Tastes delicious though.
I believe it. I'm good.
Even I've had ranch.
Here's the question that I've been neglecting to ask. Like, is there a reason? Like, is there like a, the way you were raised, or is some sort of like cultural reason why you don't eat a lot of this stuff, or is it just like you didn't encounter it? Is it a Rhode Island thing?
As a youth, I was a very picky eater, and now I'm not really so much a picky eater, but like I'm still like just some things I just don't eat, and I have like no real desire to eat them. Like here's the thing. If somebody put like some fancy like gourmet meal stuff in front of me, when I was 12, I would have looked at that and been like, yeah, no, I'm not eating that. Now I'll be like, all right, yeah, sure. Let me give this a go. But if somebody put ranch in front of me that came out of a squeeze bottle that I can buy on the bottom shelf in the supermarket, I'm like, nope.
See, that's the wrong.
I'm comfortable
ranch.
with the decision that my 12-year-old self made here. I'm good.
If it's not stored in the fridge at the grocery store, you don't want that ranch.
Yeah, they're all. I heard that exact take. I've heard that exact take before, and I'm again comfortable with my decision on ranch. I'm much better than I used to. Like I eat like green beans and I love broccoli and like I'll eat green vegetables and stuff, but I don't do salad. I'm out on lettuce. I don't.
You missed that part because I edited it out of one of our episodes where I didn't know the difference between broccoli and I don't know something else that I think it was green beans and broccoli. I wasn't sure which one I was eating.
That's a tough one right there. I do remember you not knowing.
I'm pretty
the difference
sure
between
I
broccoli
edited
and something,
that.
but
I think I
can't
edited
remember.
that out of the episode.
I,
We normally record Tuesday nights, but it's like the middle of dinner time for me because I'm 3 hours behind, and so I'm usually eating while we're recording. And
what he doesn't tell you is I usually eat after we record because I don't eat early.
But what
you're
do you
foolish.
eat?
What do I eat?
I wouldn't even know like where. Well, I guess Al specifically, but I wouldn't even know where to start.
Oh, my
With,
wife
like,
cooks
imagining
delicious
what you're-
meals every night.
Okay, but what is it? Just give me an example, like one meal.
I had pulled pork earlier.
Okay,
Had a pulled pork sandwich.
Pulled pork's delicious.
on the side.
On the side, I had French fries.
Okay,
I
and
would
see,
expect
both
like
of those
coleslaw
things-
or
That's a normal
something.
meal. No, I don't
that
like
is a
coleslaw.
normal meal, but both of those things.
I've actually
could,
never
like,
had coleslaw,
very
but I don't want
easily
to try it.
fit onto the list of things that you've never had before at the same
Yeah,
time.
That's true.
You know, so I'm just trying to figure out where the line is. It's always been a mystery to me. It remains a mystery.
It's
You know,
it's all over the place. That's the problem. There's not a normal. It's not like a normal delineation.
right? I'm
It's
trying to
like,
make sense of
the
it.
line is a
Yeah, it makes no
seismograph
sense.
during an earthquake.
Right.
Right.
So I blame my father because he's a super picky eater, and so we had like the same 3 meals every week when I was growing up for
Okay.
most of my life, and so I never had anything else because I just ate the same thing, and I continued that for a long time. I still eat. I've had peanut butter toast for breakfast every meal that I've ever made for myself. If we go out somewhere for breakfast, I'll eat eggs and bacon and
Right.
normal
Okay.
stuff.
Okay.
But if I'm making breakfast for myself, I just peanut butter toast for like the last 25 years because I can eat the same thing every day and not have a problem.
I could do that.
I pack my lunch every day and it's the same sandwich and
Same.
same thing every day.
Do you think, like, generally speaking, do you like food?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
I
I
don't-
don't think I'm weird about
You guys, I'm not kidding when I say this. You have to listen to the Ringer Fantasy Football Show. They literally have a producer who they make him like try new food because he has the most bland palate imaginable. Like the first food they made him try was literally just Kraft mac and cheese. Like,
that Al's never had.
I'm trying to think if I've had mac and cheese. I don't know if I've had the
Yeah,
box
yeah, I mean,
mac and
that-
cheese though.
not the important part of it. Like I'm telling you, you've got to listen to it. But anyway,
Well, I listen to Around the NFL podcast, and one of the guys on there famously just doesn't enjoy food much. So, like, it's just like a sustenance thing for him. So,
Oh no, I like food. That's not a problem.
okay,
The
that's
things,
what I was
the
curious
things that
about,
I
just
like,
kind of
I will
involved
eat a
with that.
lot of. It's just that I have a narrow window.
I understand. I mean, I don't understand. That's a lot.
Chicken
but
patties.
I'm trying to understand. I'm open.
he
I'm
likes
obviously
chicken,
a big guy.
chicken
Obviously like
patties
food,
and
so-
We'll get
calamari.
I had calamari and chicken patties every day in college.
That's amazing.
It's such a random thing to have every day, but I don't think I've ever been to a restaurant that offered calamari where I didn't order calamari. And
Never
it's bad.
never
it's
with
bad.
me.
Like
And you-
90% of the time they don't make it well.
And you don't dip it, right?
No, I just like it by itself.
That's wild.
Oh,
They
don't
give us
ever-
ranch in a bottle down here.
Don't ever eat calamari
Like
from a
a-
gas station. I learned that the hard way.
No
Even
one
if it's-
other than you.
Even
needed
if
to
it's
be told
free with
that.
Philip, do
no
not
one
eat
other than
calamari
you
from a gas
needed
station.
to be told that.
Because it gave me food poisoning, and then the next day I got food poisoning again because I ate the leftovers. So twice. That was a 2-for-1 on that meal. So don't do that. Life advice.
That's what the people come for. Life advice on gas station calamari.
Right.
Oh my god!
Don't double down.
It's not worth it.
He didn't even get worms in his stomach. Futurama references.
It did not make me stronger or smarter. They made me lose 10% of my body weight through vomiting.
Oh god! The most disgusting smell I've ever encountered in my life was when a coworker of mine got food poisoning and was in the bathroom screaming. So I walked into the bathroom because I thought like,
Why would you heard someone screaming? Why would you walk in there?
well, he was like screaming like in
What
pain.
did you think was happening?
Wasn't really sure. I mean, like he was. It wasn't like a private bathroom. Like it was like there were stalls and everything. So like I don't know, anything could have been happening. And I
You're
walk
passing
in
a
there, and it
kidney
was
stone.
the
You don't want to
most
see that.
I didn't have to see anything. He was in a stall. Well, I did have to see stuff because there was puke all over the floor, and I just nope. He had
Turn around and walk
He
back
had
out.
food poisoning. I walked in. He said, "Go call me an ambulance," and I just was like, "Are you sure?" He's like, "Yes."
That's what it feels
The
like.
man left in an ambulance because he had food poisoning. That's how disgusting it was.
It's unpleasant.
Yeah.
That's a good way to
Brutal.
end this. That's a good way to end this.
See you next week.
Yeah, everybody come back next time. We'll be discussing our favorite recipes. And Al's top 10 gas stations to buy calamari at. Ooh, what is your favorite meal to cook when you're cooking for a billion people at a time?
Ooh, fajitas is a lot of fun. It feeds a lot of people. You get to make a lot of sides. Down in Texas, we do guacamole, the pico,
Nice.
salsa, like various salsas. I love doing all that stuff. My wife is from the Rio Grande Valley, so I like copying all the salsas that I encounter down there. Yeah, I like that one a lot. Beef tenderloin is another big one. And if I'm being really honest, because I kind of like to phone it in at work sometimes, I really like to do a nice Italian pasta night because that is exciting.
Yeah. Boil
very
up some
popular.
pasta.
Very popular at our house where it feels like we're
Absolutely.
having a buffet with all of the
And
children.
We are not too pretentious to crack a can of pasta sauce in my kitchen. So
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. It's not bad to make your own sauce, but it's also not the worst thing in the world. Just open that jar every now and again.
there you go. There you go.
All right, we gotta wrap up because I need to go to bed. And unless I actually make myself, we will just keep going from topic to topic indefinitely.
Yeah, we'll do 12 hours.
I promised everyone a Schlitterbahn story, and it's getting too late into the night for me to start it now, but I will come back on and tell it. Or you can Google it, but don't Google it. It's better for me.
No,
Don't
no one
spoil
Google it. No.
Don't spoil it.
We'll leave it. We'll leave it for next time. We'll open with it next time. We'll get it out of the way early so that you can have your full allotment of time.
It'd be fun if I kind of set it up, right? Like let me actually set it up. Okay,
All right, go for it.
2 minutes. All right.
Sure.
So our story starts out in a hotel room, in a suburb of Kansas City, Kansas, and you have several older men in their middle-aged 50, 60-year-old men sitting around a room with some prostitutes and some
Naturally.
human traffickers, I believe is what they're referred to as in the articles, what we would know as a pimp. And they're sitting around and they're negotiating a price over how these guys are going to pay for the prostitutes. And one man says, well, I'll give you, $100, and then I'll give you 10 passes to Schlitterbahn, 10 family passes to Schlitterbahn. And it causes a big ruckus with the human traffickers and the prostitutes. And they all start fighting, and the police get called for a disturbance. And they, come into the hotel room, and our antagonist, Jeff Henry, owner of Schlitterbahn, is inside the hotel room trying to negotiate prostitutes with Schlitterbahn season passes. And they ask him why he's there, and in town, in Kansas, all the way so far from Texas, and he's there on murder charges because he's been charged with the murder of a 10-year-old boy. So that's where we're at. I'll leave it there. And
That is that is a tease
Tune in
right
next
there.
week for more.
I didn't know we were starting like
So how about that?
a radio serial here.
that's why I say I better come back and finish this later because it's a tale.
Oh my god!
that was one heck. I'm hooked. I'm ready.
Good.
That's the teaser trailer. I'm watching episode 1 for sure.
All right, guys.
All right. Well,
Well,
thank
I
you.
appreciate you having me on, man.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. We appreciate all the time. We appreciate all the stories.
Yeah.
We appreciate you putting up with our nonsense questions.
Yep.
Absolutely. We'll catch you next time. Hello.
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 He's
still
gonna
don't get
he's
it.
gonna be so pissed about that.
I still don't get it.
It's fine. You don't have to get it. It's from a show. You'll be all right. Watch the television, you uncultured swine.